Hey, it says I'm live. Look at that. Yeah, 6 seconds in. Just wait for YouTube to send me my confirmation. And there's my confirmation. Let's begin, shall we? How are we doing on... Okay. So if you want to follow along, all I've done is I've scrolled to the top. And I'm just going to read the comments from the top. I'm also going to keep my eye on the number of people that are on because I'm trying a new time, which is noon. If the numbers remain low, I won't keep it at noon. I'll keep it at 7:15. 7:15, the numbers end up being somewhere between 150 and 200. I don't have a channel where viewership is rising. It's about the same all the time. Is the new time for live market? Okay, I already answered that. Many respected individuals, including Trump supporters, are suggesting that inflation may return if Trump is reelected. Therefore, it might be wise to avoid investing in TLT. What's your take on this? I don't think so. Talking about tariffs, tariffs are a one-time bump to prices if he actually does tariffs. So it's only inflationary once, and that would show up in CPI, not PPI, and it may not show up in PCE. Let me see if I can get you to tariffs. Let me see if I can get you to agree to tariffs. But we're going to do it from a different approach. We're going to do it from a liberal approach to tariffs. How's that sound? We know that they're not interested in tariffs at all. But let's see if we can't get there. Let's elect Harris. Now she wants to raise taxes. The corporate tax rate would have to go up to maintain cash flows. If corporate tax rates go up, don't you think some of them are going to take that opportunity to pass that cost along to you and raise prices or cut expenses somewhere, but they'll preserve margins. But let's assume that they're not going to do that. Let's say that they've decided to go to a more fair approach, because you can't keep going after the same group of people again and again and again. You can't keep saying billionaires and millionaires don't pay their fair share and corporations don't pay their fair share. For as long as I've been around, politicians have been echoing that year after year after year. We're just asking the most successful to pay a little bit more, to pay their fair share. That's an old trope. I don't know how many years old that one is. But let's say instead we go to a broad-based consumption tax, which a lot of countries have adopted. Canada was, based is 7% federal, and then you have provincial, or is it 5%? I forget what it is. I know Ontario is 13%. Some countries are 20% VAT. So let's say we do a broad-based consumption tax and we go 20% across the board in the US. There we go. Because this debt has to be paid for. I want you to understand something first. Every single penny a government spends has got to come from you. It's got to come from you somewhere. Whether it comes from you, whether it comes from your estate, whether it comes from your children, your neighbors, it's got to come from you. Because a government, the US government, cannot tax somebody in Europe and say, well, you owe us money. We're going to tax your income. You got to tax Americans. Americans got to pay for it. When we say a tariff is nothing more than a tax on its citizens, like I said, you got to pay for it somewhere. So why don't we just do a broad-based consumption tax? Why don't you just raise the consumption tax? It's fair because everybody pays 20%. To take a more liberal approach, we'll say, well, lower income people, it would be a burden on lower income people. They spend a disproportionate amount on food, shelter, and utilities. Okay, well then no tax on that. No consumption tax on food, no consumption tax on housing, no consumption tax on your home utilities for everyone. And now you pay a consumption tax. A lower income person might buy $50 shoes. A higher income person buys $200 shoes. The higher income person will spend more in absolute dollars on taxes than the lower income person will spend. There you go. But it's fair because it's the same percentage. I will just spend more than you. I will end up paying a greater burden of the taxes than you will. Let's take it one step further. 20% sales tax. What if we say, yeah, but we don't want to kill jobs. We don't want to kill the economy here. What if we said, let's keep the tax rate, the consumption tax at 8% where it is now or wherever it is. And let's just say it's 20% on stuff that comes from outside the country. What if you buy, stuff that's made here with American labor, then you pay the normal sales tax. If not, you pay the 20% sales tax on that. That's a tariff. That's the same thing as a tariff. You have to pay those bills. You don't get to get all of that government spending and never pay it back. It's got to be paid back. And every penny a government spends must come from you somewhere. So if you like the idea of, yeah, that sales tax is good, we can help the lower income people by avoiding sales tax on the stuff they pay for. Everybody gets to pay. It's a fair bill. We're not going after capital and millionaires and billionaires all the time and chasing them away. And then to say, hey, why not favor our own workers? There's your tariff. There's your tariff from a very liberal backing into it. Instead of saying, let's put a tariff, you get to it from a different way. And whenever a sales tax increases, you get an increase in CPI, because CPI is how much the consumer spends. You get an increase once. So it's inflationary. A tariff is inflationary once. That's all. Once. So no, I don't see it. And if you follow the logic that I reasoned out, that no matter which way things go, it backs the Fed into a corner where it will have no choice but to lower rates or let the economy destroy itself. Let the debt build up, let the interest rate build up, keep your eye on inflation, and just let the economy collapse under the weight of its debt. You can do that. And when we say something is inflationary, it's never been yet. We had massive government spending 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Where was the inflation? Japan has just recently got inflation, 30 years of it. Where's the inflation? Where's the inflation? So no, I'm not sold in a global marketplace. In a global marketplace, with the pace of technology that we have, I am not sold on demand-induced inflation, especially when you have a whole bunch of the constraints that we had in the 70s gone. A lot of those constraints are simply gone. In the 70s, you had a lot of inflation because where were you going to go? Most of the world wasn't industrialized. Soviet Union, you're not going there. China didn't really exist. Japan was really still just rebuilding, really wasn't anything. South America was mostly oil and farming. Where were you going to go? There really was the US and Europe. I mean, that's really all you can do. Now it's global. Now you have manufacturing everywhere. You have outsourcing that can be done almost anywhere overnight. I don't know that we live in an inflationary world unless you shut down supply. So no, I'm not sold on it. I would seem to think that what we're having or what we're seeing with this idea of it's going to be inflationary is a recency effect. It is overweighting the probability of the most recent event. If you asked a group of investors, what's the probability of another pandemic, it would probably be higher. The subjective probability would be higher than the empirical probability because we just had one. So I think there's some recency effect hanging out there, and we've forgotten the 10, 12, 13 years before that. We've forgotten from, heck, the mid 80s all the way to before the financial crisis. Inflation just came down. It actually had a name. That whole period was called the Great Moderation. It came down because more and more countries joined the world order. And then in 1998, 1999, was it? China entered the World Trade Organization, and there was another round of it. This idea that, well, there's no big country left to join. There's India, and that you can't continually get the kind of lower pricing that we can get. Look at the level of technology you have today versus what you had 20 years ago, right? Go back to 2004, BlackBerries. There was no smartphone. There was no app business. None of that really existed. The cloud was just a thought. AI was called regression, and it was just, what AI there was just sort of fantasy. And look at where we are today, right? So where are we going to be in 20 years? Technology is deflationary. The world order is deflationary. We have money can travel almost anywhere, and production can go almost anywhere. I'm having a hard time seeing, when I see negative numbers in front of PPI, raw material prices, CPI, when you're seeing all of these negative numbers month over month around the world, how one country can go it alone. The most technologically advanced country. No, I'm not seeing it. Not seeing it. So no, your duration continues to be my top conviction. Why did you buy TLT calls rather than selling more puts? Who says I didn't do that, right? I sold a bunch of puts, and then I bought calls. Or I sold calls and I plan to sell puts, or I did them at the same time. What does it matter what order I do it in? I already have a whole bunch of puts. I am laddered 100, 99, 98, 90, all the way down to 87. I am laddered with volume at every one of those through November, December, January. So I am stripped down and stripped across. I have lots of puts, a whole bunch. So you can buy calls and then sell puts, or you can sell puts and then buy calls. I don't know that it matters. I bought calls at 93. I have a lot of undefined risk. This is defined risk. My thinking was, I buy calls at 93, TLT goes up, I'm doing well on the calls. And I'm doing well on the puts. TLT goes down, I don't have another bunch of puts, another 100 puts hurting me. TLT goes down, I can then sell puts at an even lower strike price than I could have had I done it at that time. So this is more about stepping into a risk reversal, right? And I don't know that I want to time it. I bought the calls for 1 month. I don't know that I want to sell the puts for that month. I bought the calls for 1 month. I have puts expiring in November. We get to November, I get to keep that. I will add to my puts for December. We get that, keep that, go to January. I'll add to my puts to January. I'd rather sell puts month by month against the long calls, but my first position is long calls. Congrats on the new logo. I don't own the company. I didn't do the logo. Any reason for the change? I think it's with all the different brands they have, all the different companies they bought, I think they changed it all to single letters or single type logos, and they wanted a unified look across all of them, I think. Full-time worker, how can I study every day for CFA? Everything you want requires sacrifice. Nothing comes easy, and nothing worth having is easy, and nothing comes for free, right? Every religion has the sacrifice story. You can have anything you want, but you got to make a sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice? You say you have no time. Well, what do you do at night? 2 hours of binge watching Netflix and TV? Give that up. partying, give that up. You got to give something up. You got to sacrifice. So that's what I would say is look for something to sacrifice. All right. Thoughts on the increase in yields we're seeing? The market mainly pricing in expected inflation. Well, I think CPI gave the market pause, and then the narrative starts, right? And the narrative builds and it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds. And as the price goes down, that narrative gets louder and it builds. And now new things are introduced and new scenarios are introduced. And somebody says, oh, I'm short this and I'm short that. And oh, we're never going back to this. And oh, this is, Fed can't. Pretty soon it has a life of its own. So that what started from a CPI that, nothing ever does this. It does this. So we had a couple months in a row. A bounce is not, a little tick up in CPI. That is not outside of the norm. But man, does it have a life of its own all of a sudden, right? It's like Newmont missed by 5 cents, 81 cents instead of 86, and throw it out, right? Throw it out. Meanwhile, it's all-in sustaining costs for gold are $1,400, $1,415 an ounce, all-in sustaining costs. Gold is $2,700 going higher. There's an opportunity, right? When a narrative goes a bit too far. Same with Tesla. That narrative went a bit too far. It cut 10% of its workforce, that it wasn't going to have an increase in earnings per share just because of that. Flat sales year over year, flat sales. But look at its cash flow. Wow, that's incredible cash flow until you go to the balance sheet and you see, well, accounts payable increased by $1 billion. Days payable increased by 3 days to get that done. Other operating liabilities increased by $1.6 billion. So you came up with your free cash flow because you managed your liabilities at the end of the quarter by not paying them to get an extra 2.6, of which you're going to have to pay a couple of days after the end of the quarter. So if you adjust free cash flow for the manipulation, free cash flow was 100 million, 0.1 billion, 0.1 billion. But the narrative, oh my God, we're going to have flying cars tomorrow. By the end of the day, you had fake robots and nothing on a robo-taxi. 2026 to it's absolutely going to happen. It's going to happen at the beginning of next year. Just you wait and see. And we're going to get 20 to 30% growth in car sales. When the Chinese car firms collectively have openly said we plan to double our production capacity outside the country. Somehow in this market, you're going to squeeze out 20% growth. All fantasy, but it's a narrative that builds. So TLT, it's a narrative. It's a narrative, and everyone jumps on that narrative. Everybody gets on board that narrative, and pretty soon you can't figure out why anyone would ever want to buy this garbage. Why would anyone ever want to buy this garbage? Show me that. Show me a story where everyone's throwing it out and I'll find opportunity. That's where the opportunity is, because it cannot be right. It cannot be right. So I'm comfortable. But let me say this. You got to do what's right for you. If you're not comfortable with duration, don't do it. There's lots of opportunity in other places. You don't have to make your money on duration. There's plenty of opportunity in other places. I happen to see opportunity in duration. That's where I'm going to be. That's where I want to be. I listen to what other people say. I've thought it through. I've gone through the scenarios, and I see no way out for the Fed. I see no way out. I firmly believe that we have a deflationary backdrop in this world, not an inflationary backdrop, but deflationary. I don't see an easy way out of the debt problem. And if you're going to make something more affordable, you can either lower the price, you can raise the income, or you can lower the carrying cost. That's what the Fed can do. The Fed can manage the interest rate. It cannot cut the debt, and it cannot give people a raise. It cannot, it can't, I shouldn't say give people a raise. It can't set tax rates. It can't set tax rates. So all it can do is manage the interest rate. It has a dual mandate. Inflation and full employment. Full employment will be the issue. It will be the issue. Because if you have a government that is now spending 19%, 21%, 23% of all revenue on interest expense, that the long end of the curve rising, all OASs, even if they don't rise, all corporate yields will rise, all mortgage rates will rise, all car loans will rise, all debt will go up. Cannot have that. Cannot have that. So no, the Fed will step in long before that. So all of my thinking suggests that this narrative that's gotten a hold today is wrong. And when everyone's singing the same song, it's wrong. It's wrong. Let's pick up the pace here. Thoughts on the Canadian market and recent 50 basis point cut? That was a surprise to me. I don't know why we're hung up on 50 basis point cuts. 25 would have been enough, but they went 50. Do you think central bank was too late for that cut? No. That's 125 basis points in cuts. Any soft landing scenario? If anything, I don't think they're too late on the cut. If anything, they kept their eye on inflation for too long, and they believed that inflation was demand driven, and they just needed to get demand down more. I have from the very beginning been saying that this is, you're not going to do much if supply is low. Raise interest rates all you want. It's actually going to hurt supply. It's not going to help supply. It's going to hurt supply. If you want to cure inflation, lower interest rates. As odd as that sounds, lower interest rates, because supply comes online. And the more supply, the lower the price, right? Or at least the less pressure there is to the upside. In Germany, capital gains tax flat 26.4. That's reasonable. Personal income tax is progressive, capped at 45. That's reasonable. Do you think these rates are reasonable? Well, if I compare it to Canada, yeah. Ontario, high income earners, 53.5%. That's not even counting the municipal tax burden or the property tax burden. Capital gains was 50% inclusion. So if you made 100,000 in capital gains, you claimed 50 at your normal rate of income. If it were 53.5, you're at the 26%. Now it's 66% inclusion. So Canada has both a higher top rate and a higher capital gains rate than Germany. Let's see. Do you think the September decline in U.S. LEI is due to September decline in LEI? Listen, the LEI in the U.S. has been negative for like 2 years. Nobody cares anymore. It when it's negative for that long, it loses its meaning as an indicator. When it's negative for that long and nothing happens, it's no longer an indicator. So I would say at this point, who cares about the LEI? It's broken somewhere. It's broken. Whether it's broken right now and it'll have meaning later on, I don't know, but it is broken right now. Studying finance on my own for quite some time. SEC registration required to give financial advice to others. I don't know. That's a U.S. thing, and that is for financial advisors. Some registration is required, I'm sure. Any specific qualifications, requirements for registration? I don't know. I don't know that one. I want to be a trader. Do you think technical analysis would be beneficial? I don't think it would be. When you say a trader, I don't know what you mean when you use the word trader. Do you mean someone who executes orders? So you're sitting at a computer and you get a slip of paper handed to you from the portfolio manager saying, get me out of 63,000 PNG, get me into this much craft, and then you simply have to get that done without leaving. Do you mean a trader like that? No, you don't need technical analysis. You just better know how to execute with the lowest cost. When you say trader, do you mean somebody sitting in front of 10 screens going, oh, buy this, sell this, buy this, sell this? A gambler? That's a gambler. Well, a gambler will bring in whatever they think will help them. So I would say, like any religion, if it gives you comfort, then sure. I don't know what you mean when you say trader, because that word is used to mean different things by different people. So I'm not sure how you're using that word. What are your thoughts on courses offered by Corporate Finance Institute? There's a big overlap with some of the things from CFA. Like I think they have some things on financial analysis and math for finance. All of this stuff you'd see in level 1 CFA. So there's overlap there. Valuation, discounted cash flow comparables, big overlap with level 2 equity on that one. So if you're going through the CFA program, you probably have half of it covered with those courses. The 3-statement model is what I'm doing now. Then I'm moving on to valuation. So I think they have a bunch of other stuff. I can't remember all the things they have. I do have access. I have access to all of them. Some are pretty bad. Some are okay. Some are, well, I don't agree with. One I don't agree with is you're doing some financial modeling for a company and then you're just using an analyst recommendation and taking your assumptions from if I'm going to take my assumptions from JP Morgan, why would I just not use JP Morgan? Like if I'm just, why am I redoing? Why not just use what they've done? Right? I don't agree with that. When do you expect to complete your financial modeling? There is no completion date. It's ongoing. It doesn't end. Once I'm done with Costco, I move on to an apartment REIT. And then I say next semester because I still think in semesters. It's been my whole life. Next semester, January through April, is the valuation part where we'll do the 2 or 3 different valuation metrics for Costco. We'll do a discounted cash flow for sure. We'll do comparatives. That's next. So we'll do the valuation part. But it doesn't end. There are 11 sectors of the economy. The financial modeling part, once you know how to use Excel and model a set of assumptions, I can give you a set of assumptions for any company, and you should be able to do it, right? It's not as if the model, all that you've learned about building a model changes each and every time. What you're multiplying may change. How the line items you use may change, but the process is the same. The difficulty in all of this is looking at a company, company's revenues and saying, well, how would I model that? They have 4 distinct segments, all with different growth rates, all with different gross margins. So suddenly the aggregate data loses all information. You got to go to the micro data. Well, how would I model that? How would I model Costco's debt structure? Was easy to model. The debt schedule was pretty straightforward. Fixed rate debt, they only have 5 issues. One is Japanese debt. That was fairly easy to get through. But what happens when you get to a company that has 29 bonds, some of them with optionality that you have to worry about, and maybe a few convertibles in there, right? How do you deal with that? What about a company like, how about a mortgage REIT? How would you deal with that? Because their debt is all repo debt. It's all short-term debt. How would you forecast that? Well, you'd have to have some idea about where leverage is going, right? The hardest part of all of this is figuring out for different companies how to model the line items, how to model revenue. That's the big thing. If you can get revenue, a lot of things fall in line, but some companies are very difficult to forecast for revenue. That's the hard part of it. That's the CFA part of it. Most of these financial modeling courses teach you modeling. In other words, we have these assumptions from the analyst. Here's how we model it. I think the critical thing is, well, hang on a second. How do you get the assumptions from the analyst? Isn't that, once I have that, isn't the rest pretty straightforward? And the rest is. So it'll never be done, because once I'm done there, I'll probably add an auto company. I'll probably add a mining company. I'll probably add I'll probably find some company that breaks down into separate segments that have different margins and different growth rates. I'll probably find a company whose debt structure is very difficult to follow. I'll probably use a company that relies a lot on leases, like a railroad company or an airline company. So it never ends. I'll just keep adding to it. I have no plan, until something changes with me, there is no conclusion to it. Thoughts about popular Forex websites. I don't trade. I shouldn't say I don't trade Forex. I do, but I don't do a lot of, well, I do trade the peso and I trade the Canadian because it's what I know. But I'm not trying to be a Forex trader. It's brutally difficult. Of all the prices of things that you can trade out there, it is the most random. So it's akin to gambling. I feel they're similar to gambling. Well, there you go. The informed investor can take a position with them, especially in emerging markets, if it's your thing, right? I mean, I've done it in the past, and I leave things because I come to conclusions of, well, this is just random, and there's a lot of technical analysis in Forex trading, which is itself just another random thing. There's nothing there with technical analysis. So you have to combine two random things and hope that you're getting somewhere. If you have a fundamental approach to it, interest rate differentials, it probably the most popular one. You can get somewhere with it if you are looking at purchasing power parity over a long period of time, and something is way off its purchasing power parity, and you're willing to hold or take a position over a period of time, sure. But if you're looking to in and out, 10 screens going on around you and spinning your pen in your hand as you're looking at the screen, that's the movies, man. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. Quite difficult to find an undervalued large cap stock nowadays. No, GM. I think it's one of the cheapest in the S&P 500. 5.5 times forward earnings. For a company that has a declared willingness to buy back its own shares. Still going to buy the first quarter of 2026, another 130 million shares, 140 million shares it's going to buy back at 5.3 times forward earnings, more profitable per car than Tesla, triple the cash flow of Tesla, triple the size of Tesla in terms of the amount of cars it sells, and 1/16 its market cap. I mean, yeah. How do you even compare? GM is super cheap right now. So there are underpriced issues in S&P 500. Banks asset and liability matching would also seem to be an issue if rates stay up and go higher. No, I think banks would become more profitable. Banks are super profitable with really, really steep yield curves because their wholesale funding is really cheap in relation to what they're lending at. So a very high 10-year and a very low Fed funds futures or Fed funds rate, they can borrow overnight at a really low rate, and they can lend at an extremely high rate. Their net income margin would do very well. Banks love very steep yield curves. They do best as the yield curve is steepening, their net income margin is widening. They tend to do really, really well with steepening yield curves. Excluding biotech, are there any specific stocks or industries in the healthcare sector you may be interested to invest in? That's not my thing. Healthcare is just not my thing. I've taken no time in learning anything much about it. I think all the money is with the pharmaceutical companies. not the healthcare companies, not the PBMs, not the distributors, but concentrated with the manufacturers, the pharmaceutical companies. You have to know their markets, and yeah, it's just not my thing. So I have nothing there. Individual investor makes deep dive analysis in stocks you invest. Does it make sense to hold more than 10 to 15 positions at a time? I think it'd be difficult to manage that many positions. I think it would be hard to stay on top of that many. How is that short in Tesla currently playing? I covered that in the positions video for the applied level. Talked about that on Friday, so you can check it out there. Previous stream, it's impossible to forecast FX rates, and anyone that can do so is guessing. True. There are many contracted traders that remain working for a firm for 50. What do you mean by contracted? What do you mean by traders? What do you mean when you use those words, contracted traders? What does that mean? I don't know. So I can't comment on that because I don't know what you mean when you use those words. What's a contracted trader? Every large firm has a Forex strategist because they have Forex exposure. So you got to have some opinion of where it's going. But they're not issuing daily or weekly calls. They're not day trading in the least. They may have a longer term view, a year, 2 years, 3 years out, but Forex strategists they're not day trading. I can't day trade Forex. I don't know what's going to happen from day to day. Who the hell knows? I don't know. You got to get lucky. And you got to be lucky more than you're unlucky. I don't know. But if you said, where's the Canadian going to be in 6 months? I have, some idea, but I don't know. I'm willing to hold because I have both US and Canadian dollars. So if I take a position, it's like it's going to benefit me no matter what. But if all I had was a screen and currency quotes and I was expected to make money, I'd probably buy a bond and go get a job, even a minimum wage job, and I'd probably do better than a Forex trader. If by trading you mean what I just described a while ago, a bunch of screens and you're trading in and out, the day trading crap. Preparing for level 1 in November, hopefully we'll pass. Is it best to go for level 2 in May or August? I don't know. I don't know anything about you. I don't know what score you're going to pass with. I don't know how long it took you to prepare for level 1. I know nothing about you. I do get these questions a lot. Should I take it this date or that date? I don't know. Nowhere near enough information by just telling me what the calendar looks like. Nowhere near enough information. Long TLT isn't the same as being short SPY. I don't think so. Rates are going down because it's the economy. Well, I mean, if rates are going down because the economy is doing well, why would you want to be an SPY to begin with? But there'd be a negative correlation. Do you sell calls on dividend-paying stocks? I don't know. Maybe. Sure. No. I mean, do I have a strategy in my head of saying, find me some dividend-paying stocks to sell calls on? No. Have I sold calls on stocks in the past that paid dividends? Oh, I'm sure I have. But I mean, it's not like I'm going to look for them. It's not like I have a strategy saying, hey, guess what? I've got something. The call premium on the bigger the dividend yield on a stock, the smaller the premium is on the call because it keeps dropping by the dividend. So the lack of the dividend will already be in the call. It will already be in there. It will be lower by the cumulative amount of what we expect the stock to drop by. There are no free lunches there. So there's no strategy saying let's sell it on dividend paying calls because it's already reflected in the price. It would already have been reflected in the price. Where's our next one? Holding ZB plus US Treasury bills versus holding the actual cheapest deliver bond. Cheapest delivered change, very rare that they change. They can, but not without a lot of volatility in the rate, a lot. And you held ZB with any effect on ZB? No. From one or no. That's the point of ZB, is you have that optionality. It may benefit you, but you can't take delivery unless you're institutional. You can't take delivery of the cheapest deliver anyway. So what do you care? Wouldn't really matter to you. There's no reason why you need hold futures unless you're looking for leverage. That would be the only reason why you'd want futures. How do you find fair value of TLT? TLT is a portfolio. The fair value of TLT is the value of its holdings, period. And TLT trades at fair value all the time. No matter what time of day you look at TLT, it's fair value. It's fair value. It's fair value. Why? Because TLT is just a portfolio. It's not a company. There is no management. It's just a portfolio. And the fair value of any portfolio is the holdings that it has. Just like an ETF. What's the fair value of an ETF? The sum of all the positions that it holds. Now, you can ask about the fair value of the positions it holds, but the fair value of an ETF is correct at all times. It is whatever it's trading for. Do you eat or... What does that have to do with TLT? Is that a spelling mistake? Do you eat organic? I don't understand that. Is it worth eating organic? I'm not following. How do you find the fair value? What kind of spelling mistake would that be? I see as an investment in long-term health. Oh, it's a separate question. Do I eat organic? I don't know. Maybe I do. Do I go to the grocery store saying I only want organic? No. Do I buy things that happen to be organic? I'm sure I do. So I'm sure I do. What would be not organic? Is cauliflower organic? I guess I eat that. Is meat organic? Are eggs organic? So I would say, yeah. If I don't eat anything processed, I don't think I eat processed food other than cheese. I don't think I eat processed food, so I guess I eat organic. Is a black olive organic? Maybe it is. I mean, I don't need to pay a premium price for the manufacturer to print the word organic on it for me to say, oh, okay, I'm eating organic. What does it matter? I mean, if you stay away from processed food, this stalk of celery is organic. This one isn't. Tell me the difference. I don't know. What do you think of live cattle futures? Haven't watched them in a while. So I wouldn't have an answer to that. Have you ever got offer from top universities, especially Ivy League or other universities that are top ranking with programs in finance? Why would I? I don't publish. I don't publish in any academic journal. Why would any of them even look at me? They don't hire professors. They hire researchers. All of the professors are researchers. You have to be well published. Either that or you have to be X something or other. That you were Treasury Secretary for 4 years, or you were a Fed a governor for years, or you were a Fed president for years. Somebody who built a successful CFA business. I don't publish. No university, not even a middle level university, would reach out and say, "Hey, we'd like you to teach." Universities don't hire teachers. Okay, that's a big misunderstanding. Universities do not hire teachers. Do not apply to a university saying, "I love teaching. I want to be a teacher." You're going nowhere. I love research. I want to be a researcher. Okay, let's talk. Any PhD program, do not say, "I love teaching and I want to be a teacher." Well, then you don't need a PhD program. PhD programs are to teach you how to be a researcher. Universities hire researchers. The researchers teach the classes. At no point is a university going out there hiring teachers. That's not the point. They hire researchers. You don't need to have any real world experience in finance to be a finance professor. Just a good publication record. And in you go. Have you ever traded a derivative? Nope. Doesn't matter. You've got great publications, you're in. Doesn't matter. You don't have to know anything about the real world to teach in a business school. Nothing. As long as you're published. Ask yourself, does that seem rational and realistic to you? But that's universities. A very broken business model. To what extent do you take consideration analyst upgrades, downgrades? They happen all the time. I don't know that it scares me out of positions or it brings me into positions. It happens all the time. Do you donate to charities? Used to. If so, how do you verify them? Well, long-standing names have been around for a long time. But I used to. I don't anymore. I used to. I don't know that it's as valuable. Donate 100,000 to a charity or put 100,000 into a new venture. I think you could probably do better for society by funding the venture and not the charity, by funding the venture. Why are you surprised the Canadian home prices are holding up? Look at the inventory just in my area here. Incredible inventory. You went from having on realtor.ca a page and a half, 2 pages, to having 50 pages. The inventory is off the charts. House next door to mine has been for sale for some time. You hardly see anybody showing up to look at it. I think there's been 2 or 3 viewings in the whole time it's been for sale. It's nothing. It was for sale since I got back midsummer. I think I've seen 3 people go through there, 2, 3 people. Still for sale. So I'm surprised, given the level of inventory and how slow houses are turning over. That's been on the market now more than 90 days, 120 days, not turning over. That I'm surprised. You look at the housing index and you see it, you go, that doesn't seem to make sense based on what I'm seeing here. Newmont 16% sell-off. Feels like an overreaction. No kidding, right? Earnings were not that bad. Gold is making all new time highs. Well, everything is an overreaction. Tesla's earnings overreaction to the upside, like massive overreaction. You telling me that 12 cents is worth 160 billion of the market cap? You telling me that a 5-cent miss is a 10% downside, 8 to 10% downside on a gold stock whose all-in sustaining cost is $1,400? And while it was going down, the price of gold was going up. I mean, everything is an overreaction now. Everything. It doesn't make any sense to me. Nice profit on the stock I shorted. Published earnings next week. How should I handle the potential risk? Well, are you comfortable holding through earnings? I guess is it. If not, then close your position. How do you know the coming earnings of a company will make the stock price very volatile? You don't. What is the best option to capture that move? Oh, hang on. When you know the coming earnings of a company will make the stock price very volatile, what is the best way to? It'll already be priced in. If you look at the price of options before earnings, the price of options goes straight up, calls and puts, because the implied volatility is being priced in. After earnings, volatility comes right out. That's called volatility crush. So you better be right. It, to me, seems like just another form of gambling. Why wouldn't I wait until I have confirmation of what it was and then go in after that? I don't need the initial move, right? It's whatever trade you're thinking of, you're going to pay for the volatility that you're expecting. You're going to pay for it anyways. Recently left Canada. My CPA asked me to make sure to rent out my home to make sure there is no question about my severed ties to Canada. Are you going to rent out your home or keep it as is? Yeah, you want to try to separate yourself from Canada as much as you possibly can. I doubt that I would sell mine. There are so many other things you can do to separate yourself from Canada. So many other things. One of them is making sure that you're not in the country longer than you should be. But there are many ways to separate yourself from the country without having to sell, without having to get rid of everything. Because you don't have to get rid of your TFSA or your RSPs or your liras or any pensions from anywhere. You don't have to get rid of any of those. You should give your health card back. You should give your driver's license back, which means you would have to get a driver's license in the other country, which then would be a driver's license here. But you should be giving these things back, surrendering these. This is good evidence. You're going to need a bank account, but you can get rid of all the other stuff. If it looks like that you've moved just for tax reasons, yeah, they're going to hit you. But if you demonstrate that you have substantially moved, but that selling your home or renting your home isn't a viable option for whatever reason, it's can you make the argument? Now, if you have just moved for tax reasons but substantially held on to here, it's going to be hard to make that case. But if you have substantially moved, if you have private health care somewhere else, for example, if you're paying for private health care in another country, if you have citizenship and you have a licensed driver's license from another country, your health care and your driver's license are in another country. If you have no source of income in this country, renting it out as a source of income, then it looks like you've left. If you can list your house and put a price on it that you say, well, if I'm going to sell it, I want $2.5 million, knowing that you're probably never going to get it. But if somebody offered you $2.5 million, you take it. You can list your house and you could say, well, look, it's listed. It just hasn't sold. Yeah, there's ways rather than, I see the new market outlook video suggested that the buildup in crude oil supply is good. Do you mean for good oil companies, the price will drop? Well, for inflationary purposes, if you have a buildup in crude, it's deflationary. I don't think oil prices are going up. I think oil prices are going down. That the next move would be to the downside, right? Which is good overall for the economy. Paul Tudor's words, all paths lead to inflation. Well, that's what makes a market, right? Some people see it one way, I see it another way. I think all paths lead to deflation. I don't think they lead. Is all paths lead to inflation? All of them? Hyperbolic language, apparently very supported by Chamath. Well, because Chamath wants you to buy Bitcoin. Okay, plain and simple. I mean, he's done this how many times? Introduced SPACs and goes on CNBC and tells everybody that they got to be in this. This is incredible. This is how you build wealth, and they've all made him money, and everyone else lost. This is what he does. Of the four, I don't like the guy. I think he's an asshole. Personally, I think he's an asshole. But of course, he says that because he wants you to buy Bitcoin. He wants you to buy Bitcoin, right? So, I mean, he said, I listened to the last all in. He said it a couple of times. Why not just buy Bitcoin? Why not just buy Bitcoin? Why? He's long Bitcoin. That's why he wants you to buy Bitcoin. He's long Bitcoin. He's just, look, I know the weight of opinion is against me on TLT, but I don't care. I've thought about it. I've thought it through a number of times. I see TLT taking a shit every day in the market. You look at it, you go, oh, it's taking a shit again. It's taking a shit again. And, I go through the same process. I think it through. Am I wrong on this one? Should I do something? Should I hedge out? What should I do here? Am I wrong? No, I am not wrong. The long end of the curve, 12 months after rate cuts, has a 100% track record of being lower. 100% track record of being lower. If it stays at these levels, and if it continues to go higher, all debt costs continue to go higher, including the US government, which is already paying out how much money. At some point, it breaks and the Fed has to lower rates, or the Fed lowers rates to make sure things don't break. At some point, no matter where we go, I think lower is where we have to go. And I do believe that at some point in the Fed's future, next couple of years, there will be a conversation about moving the 2% inflation target to 3%. Right? So I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure of my analysis in my head. I'm pretty sure. Besides, I can't lose anyways. I mean, I can't lose. I have a nice dividend off of this thing. It has liquid options. So as these are assigned to me, I can easily sell upside calls, collect the dividend, sell upside call. I cannot lose on this one. Right? So I'm not too concerned. I'm not too concerned. If you tell me, well, wait till you see a 5.5% 10-year, then I'll tell you, watch the Fed cut, because watch this economy crater, because everybody's cost of debt will go up. Everybody's cost of everything will go up. We have a system that is so highly levered, and there's so much debt everywhere that you cannot tell people to manage their debt levels. It's now about managing the cost of that debt. And the Fed is the one that manages the cost of that debt. We're in a position where they have very little choice. Look at the Bank of Japan. They have no choice. They can't raise rates if they want to. Oh, there was talking about raising rates. And then they come out a little while later saying, we just don't know if it makes sense to raise rates. They're in a position where, look at the sheer size of their debt. They cannot raise rates. They can't raise rates. And if you look at the interest cost per capita in the US, how much we're paying in interest per person, you cannot allow those rates to go higher. You can't simply just solve one linear equation in a complex system and say nothing else matters. Everything matters. There is no solution, no linear set of equations that you can solve for a general equilibrium in the economy, no matter what you learn in graduate school. There is no optimization. There are only trade-offs, always trade-offs. So you can accept higher rates if you're willing to accept a huge cratering in a whole bunch of areas, and runaway debt. And if you have runaway debt, those yields will go up and up and up, but so will everyone else's, because everything is priced off of that one curve. The Fed will do what the Bank of Japan did. We'll run to the zero line and then start buying the 10-year, start buying the 30-year to yield curve control it down. It's the only way to keep this government afloat. Only way. We had inflation, and it was a beautiful opportunity to inflate away the debt, right? That was a beautiful opportunity. Run balanced budgets and inflate away the debt. What did the government do? It produced massive deficits and ruined the opportunity it had to bring the debt to GDP ratio well under control. Ruin the opportunity. You can't allow them. You can't count on them to make good decisions at this point. So the Fed will have no choice. Again, my opinion, I know it's not widely shared. I'm glad it's not widely shared, because when the evidence starts showing up that favors me, how many people have to cover? Boom. Right? the All In podcast. The funny thing is, I hear this guy's a couple of months back saying that AI is coming and so on and so forth, highly deflationary. Now I'm hearing all paths lead to inflation. Which one is it then? It's whatever story supports your book, right? I don't have a platform. I mean, I have this, but I am not influential in prices at all, at all. So the idea of talking up my book, what would it do? I can't move markets. But if I had a bigger name and I were on CNBC or I were on Bloomberg, I know how markets work. I know how they work. If I want the price of something to go up, I need people to buy it. So what do? Is I go on CNBC and I tell you, well, I'm long this, and here are my reasons why. And I've got this big name and I've been around for a long time and you've got that big audience and this is what I need. I need your audience to do what I need them to do so that my thing goes up or my thing goes down. If you're playing cards with someone and they're showing you their hand, that's because it's the hand they want you to see. Okay? Anybody who's showing you their hand, that's the hand they want you to see. I should say anyone with a voice. Buffett doesn't do that. We find out what he's doing through SEC filings, but he doesn't do that kind of stuff. Only these hedge fund traders do this kind of stuff because Bill Ackman is big on that one too. It's because and I think Kathy Wood is another one who does this kind of thing. Is they need you to go out and buy something. I if I'm long, I don't want it to be a secret. I want everyone to know that I'm long. If people listen to me, I want everyone to know I'm long so they get into it so that it goes up so I can get out long before you get out. That's how I make money. Gold outlook still a hold? Yeah. Gold is not done. Do you like your new chair? I do. It's comfortable. It's solid. It has a nice back. I don't have to work to sit here. Some chairs you got to keep pushing yourself back up or you slowly slide out of the chair. This one here has got a nice back. I like it. Yeah, I can spin sideways. Well, all chairs can do that, but the other one I had can't because the arms keep hitting the side of the desk. This here has these arms that you can raise and lower all the way through. So you can lower it to the point where you can actually pull right up to your desk if you're working, and you can spin under your desk, if you're neurotic. Options on opinions on Chris. Never heard of that. Did you decide when to do these Q&A? You look more fresh now. I don't understand that one either. I'm reading finance and newspapers related to finance, coming across new words. Will you recommend just to Google? Yep. Just Google. You once said that the Beatles and Pink Floyd are better than Beyonce. Yeah. Could you elaborate on it and explain why? If I have to elaborate on it and explain why, you truly don't understand music. If you need me to explain why Beatles, especially later Beatles, and Pink Floyd, especially Pink Floyd, why they're better than, if you need me to explain it, I would say that you don't understand music. Maybe you're into pop music, but you don't understand music, right? Any industries in the consumer sector that you think may be undervalued? Well, GM is in the consumer sector, yeah. What is considered a good TLT sensitive? Is considered a good TLT sensitive data, so I can explain what stays behind his vol. Huh? What is considered a good TLT sensitive data? so I can explain what stays behind its volatility. I think you're asking what makes TLT volatile. Right now, anything to do with the two mandates, any inflation that is higher than expectation, and any economic data that's better than expected. Both of those are add volatility to TLT. I think that's what you're asking. Can we have generalization in anything in market or finance? Like we can all agree on those things that it is the right thing. Can you give an example? A generalization? Buy low, sell high. Higher tax rates are bad for shareholders. There's less left over for them. I think we can say that. Higher interest rates will be more negative for small cap than large cap, just because of the term to maturity of their debt, and the need. The higher the need to roll over for small caps. Large caps can rely on a lot of cash. They don't really need to roll over. Apple has debt but doesn't need it. Costco has debt but doesn't need it. Many of these companies that have debt, if you look at their net debt, which is debt minus cash, really have no debt. So GM's the same way. GM has no debt. GM has debt. If you remove GMAC, because that's nothing more than an asset-backed security, GMAC has car leases, people pay them, and then they sell bonds. So remove that, you have GM debt, you have GM cash, right? GM could pay off all its debt and still have half of its cash left. So companies like that are fine, but small cap companies don't have cash. They have to rely on rolling over their debt. So you can generalize and say something like that. I'm floored you'd vote for DT. Generally default to an argument for consistency. If we are critical for Cage, not distancing ourselves from the crazy, why not DT? He does the opposite. He cozies up to it. Look, there are extremists on both sides, right? I'm going to give you a choice, and I want you to think very clear about your choice. And it's not a rational choice, but it is a choice. You're going to have a dictatorship, and you have to determine what type of dictatorship you want. You can have a socialist dictatorship or a fascist dictatorship. Those are your choices. Those are your choices. Which one do you want? Fascist dictatorships have been successful. Socialist dictatorships have never been successful. If we take the most common fascist dictatorship, that would have been Germany pre-World War II. And if we stop at 1938, if you stop at 1938 and go no further, 1932 to 1938, you would say that is one impressive economy. That is one impressive government. That is one impressive system to go from. Hang on a sec. To go from hyperinflation and a crushed economy to going to the most powerful military might in all of Europe. Let's face it, Germany walked all over Europe in the first 3 years without any issue. Instituting the 8-hour workday, strengthening unions, lowering prices, raising wages, making it very difficult for profitable companies to fire anyone. This all sounds like something Bernie Sanders would be a fan of. If Germany stopped at 1938, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren would be praising the leader I don't want to say the name because somebody might take clips out of it and put it on YouTube saying, look at this guy. But they'd be praising the leader. Time magazine made a man of the year. I forget what year it was, but made a man of the year. Chamberlain came back after meeting him saying, this is a guy we can do business with. He's got a head on his shoulders. It just went really bad after 1938. But there is no successful socialist dictatorships, none, all of them horrific. So if you had to pick, which one would you pick, the left or the right? I'd pick the right. If I had to pick, I'd pick the right. There are crazies on the right, but you know who they are. You can see them. No one pretends that they're sane. All the far right groups, neo-Nazis, they've been around forever. Everyone knows who they are. They're on the fringes. They're obvious to see. But on the left, they found their way into your schools. They found their way into your kids' classrooms. They found their way into your books. They found their way into your organizations. They found their way into the social milieu. That's more dangerous. Tyranny, I'm quoting someone here, does not come in the middle of the night kicking down your door. It comes in the language. If you want tyranny, it's that woke shit. It's that left-leaning shit. That's tyranny I don't want to live under. The other tyranny, at least I know who the enemy is. At least you can fight it. At least you can see it, right? So it's the same as in Canada, Trudeau versus Poilievre. Are you going to vote for the woke prime minister again? Right? And the wokists in Canada are calling Poilievre far right, the far right leader, the leader of the far right political party. And the level of hypocrisy on both sides, right? Donald Trump is a liar. So are liberals, except they don't call themselves liars. They say they misrepresented, they mischaracterized, or they misspoke. Look at Tim Walz. I was in Tiananmen Square when it happened. Gets called on it. I was confused. Didn't you lied. You lied. Just say, yeah, I lied. Everyone lies. Both sides. All politicians lie. They're politicians. They have to lie. Politicians have to say what you want to hear, which means they got to lie. They got to say things, sometimes stupid things, not because they're stupid, but because they think you're stupid. I mean, it's on both sides. There are no good politicians. They're all quite nasty human beings. They're all self-interested. They're all liars, right? They're all liars. So I don't know. There's crazy on both sides. I can't live with that woke crazy shit because it just flies in the face of common sense. Men should be allowed to compete with women if they put on a dress. And that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. 5-year-olds know their gender. That's another stupid thing. That's such a stupid statement, right? Some of the stupid things they said, and dangerously stupid things they said. The right says stupid things, but you can spot them. Neo-Nazis aren't teaching your kids. They're not teaching your kids, but the wokists are, right? Keep that in mind. I mean, they're in a place where they're more dangerous. Yeah. I was hoping to avoid a lot of this. Some people left comments that it's a little too much on this stuff, and I sort of agree. It's like, yeah, I should probably stick to just finance stuff, but this you see something that's stupid and you can't help but say something about it. All right. Gained so much knowledge from portfolio management section of the Applied series. Wondering if you have plans to add videos on portfolio optimization, any active. I don't know that portfolio optimization really would work out for a retail investor. If you want portfolio optimization, 60% SPY, 40% TLT, and go away. Portfolio optimization requires some inputs. It requires expected returns on your asset classes. It requires volatility on your asset classes. And it requires the correlation between asset classes. All guesses, all just made up guesses. You don't know. I can guarantee you 100% that the future will not be what your inputs to mean variance optimization are, in which case you don't have an optimized portfolio anyways. No one has an optimized portfolio. They don't exist. They're theoretical. If we knew what the return would be, if we knew what the distribution of that return would be, meaning the standard deviation, if we knew the correlations, we could design the optimal portfolio. But we don't know any of that shit. We don't know any of it. So it's all built on a mountain of guesses. There is no optimization. There's only, hey, you did a good job. You did some rigorous work there. Very good. There's only that. Pat yourself on the back thinking that you've got a nice exact number, but it's all just made up. There is no optimal portfolio in the real world. There's only an optimal portfolio theoretically. So as Plato would say, the optimal portfolio is a perfect form. And as Aristotle would say, there are no perfect forms in the real world. What are you doing? Why are you wasting your time with this nonsense? Right? So you can either take a Platonic approach or an Aristotelian approach. Guess what side I'm on? The far right Aristotle. That's who I'm with. How should we play the market if we think there's going to be a potential push down, but no idea when? Well, yeah, that's exactly it. I want to capitalize on such a push, but I don't know how to mitigate the risk. You don't know when it's going to happen. The best way to compensate is to be diversified, have beta and duration. Do you remember all the stuff that you read that you are interested in forever, or do you need to go back and revisit? I remember what I practice. So if I read a book on dark matter, let's say, 3 years later, I'll forget most of it. I'll remember the big ideas, but I'll forget a lot of it because I don't work with it. I don't practice anything about dark matter. Right? So I'd forget about it. If you'd vote for DT, wouldn't you be nauseous on sharing a bed with nut bar Christian conservatives? How do you know you're sharing a bed with them? Understand the political process. You don't get elected by saying the truth. You get elected by saying the popular thing. You have to tell people what they want to hear to get their vote. If that were not the case, you would not need any pollsters on your staff telling you that, well, this doesn't poll well with the electorate. Why the hell would I care if it polls well? That's the truth. So if I think that we should balance the budget and we need to cut government spending, but pollsters are saying that won't get you elected, then I can't say it. Even if that's what I believe in, I cannot say what I believe in because I need you to vote for me. So I need you. I need your vote. So I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. This is where you get the whole concept of broken election promises. They were never promises. They were lies, straight out lies. I told you I would do all this stuff just to get your vote. Now I'm the leader. I don't plan on doing half this shit. I just wanted your vote. I don't give a shit about you. This is about me. That's politics. So what they say is to get your vote. Are they really going to do it? Who the hell knows? Maybe, maybe not. Who the hell knows? So, nut bar Christian conservatives, you also have nut bar wokists on the other side. It doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter where you go. There's always a group of people who are going to be nut barred depending on where you're standing. There's lots of nut bars out there across the distribution. What does it matter? Democracy is broken. This is why you have the nut bars, and this is why the nut bars have a voice, is because democracy is broken. We don't vote for qualified people. We vote for popular people. To be popular, you got to say what people want to hear. Period. These are popularity contests. We're not electing, or the US is not electing the leader of the free world. It's electing a popular person. Is it going to be the king of the prom or the queen of the prom? This is all it is. It's just a popularity contest. And the most popular person will win. There are people who will vote for Harris no matter what she does. There are people who vote for Trump no matter what he does. Period. So it doesn't matter what he says. Doesn't matter what she says. She won't lose any of her votes. He won't lose any of his votes. It's just a matter of the undecided in the middle. Where are they going to go? And I think most of them know what they want to do. It's coming down. Apparently, it's going to come down to one state that's deciding the whole election. One state. Nobody else's vote really cares or matters. It's one state. This is a popularity contest. The nut bars have votes. What do they want to hear? Let's tell them that. Let's hold up a Bible. You think Trump has ever opened the Bible in his life? You think he believes in God in any form whatsoever? Come on. No. So I don't know that I'm sharing a bed. First of all, I'm not American. The election doesn't mean a damn thing to me at all. It's just, if I had to pick which one would probably be better for the next 4 years, I'd say Trump. Based on the way I see the world. What the worst stock loss you've experienced and what caused it? I don't know. Every year there's a bad one. That's normal. Anybody doing this long enough doesn't just have one, has many. Finally got the first time to sit down and watch The Rounders. Great movie. Yeah. Happy haircut. Happy haircut. Yeah. Competition and competing with others mean to you? What competition competing? Is it to destroy the competition? Do you recommend us young ones to only compete with ourselves only? Well, you got to compete against other people in the real world. You have to. But you should not compare yourself with other people. That's just a losing proposition, because there's always somebody with more. Always somebody with more. If you compare yourself against those that you're better than, it'll just make you arrogant. If you compare yourself with those who are better than you, it'll just make you depressed. You do have to compete, but you're only for personal growth, you're in competition with yourself. But you do have to compete. You have to compete in the real world. So you do have to be better. The way to get better is to be better than yourself yesterday, not better than your neighbor, but better than yourself yesterday. Any advice for an MBA student specializing in finance? You'd have to be more specific than that. What you're saying is, do you have advice for somebody who's doing the right thing? You're doing a master's degree. I mean, it would be a better question if somebody on the street said, do you have any advice for somebody who's homeless and doesn't have a job? Yeah, come here. But you're saying, look, I'm on a pathway of success right now. I'm doing my MBA. It's in finance. Any advice? Keep going. Don't do drugs. I guess that would be my only advice. Don't do drugs. BSM video, you mentioned that interest rate changes have an insignificant effect on option prices. Of all the Greeks, that one is the least interesting. Of all the Greeks, it's the least interesting. But it has a big effect on option prices over cumulative periods of time. So if you have the short rate going up and up and up and up and up and up and up over a year and a half, it will change the relationship of prices between puts and calls. But on a day-to-day basis, delta is the biggest one, followed by gamma, followed by theta. Oh, well, not theta, Vega, gamma, delta, and Vega. Sorry, let me back that up. Delta and Vega are the two that I would watch. Gamma as you get closer to expiration, theta as you get closer to expiration as well. Rho, wouldn't an unexpected change in the rate increase volatility and thus affect the price? Well, yeah, an unexpected change, yeah. Yeah, but not significantly enough. But it will. Any scenario where rates stay high, sure. Is the Fed decides that no, inflation at this level we don't like, we're going to keep rates here. The deficit doesn't get bigger, it doesn't get smaller. Demand for treasuries doesn't increase but doesn't decrease, and everything just stays in stasis. You could run high rates for a long period of time. Do you see a potential risk Japanese general election and any secondary consequential reflection in carry trades? I think they're constrained into keeping rates where they are. I don't see how you're going to get out of that situation. You've dug yourself into a hole. I don't see a way out. You pretty much have to make your house where you are at this point. Chances of fiscal restraint and curbing spending and entitlements is remote at best. Curbing entitlements would be tough, but there is a lot of waste that goes on in government. Even if you listen just to Bill Maher and his experience with getting solar hooked up at his house, the number of permits he had to get, the cost of everything that he had to go through. Well, all of that is a government bureaucrat somewhere along the way. The sheer amount of waste involved in government. You telling me you can't get it done cheaper? Come on, man. How much did the Canadian government pay for an app? It wanted an app. I forget the name of it. It was for the payroll app. Like $1 billion later, it still wasn't working. I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. Like, you could have outsourced that to a company who might have had it done in 6 weeks. How is it possible you're over $1 billion and it still doesn't work? Where's the waste going from? I want to get elected. I have special interests in my riding. Any budget is going to have to be for some spending in my riding. I want to get elected. I have a riding. If you want my vote, I got special interest in my riding. You got to sprinkle a whole bunch of shit around, whether it's needed or not, because you got to get elected. So you build runways for airports that don't need it. You build highways and bridges to roads that go nowhere. We got to get it done. The idea that government spending is efficient is laughable, and it's your money. There is no government spending. I want you to get that out of your head. That doesn't exist. It's taxpayer spending. It's all taxpayer spending. Say things again, but instead of saying the government should pay, I want you to change it to the taxpayer should pay. The government should pay for my children's daycare. The taxpayer should pay for my children's daycare. Notice how those are two very different sentences. The government is this invisible entity that, okay, yeah, well, that doesn't affect me. The taxpayer, whoa. Why am I paying for your kids' daycare? Wasn't that a lifestyle choice on your part? Didn't you choose to have children? Shouldn't you shoulder the responsibility of your own children? Why is it my responsibility all of a sudden? I already pay for their health care. I already pay for their education. Now you want me to pay for their daycare? Should I come over and change their diapers too? Would you like the taxpayer to do that? Say the taxpayer, and suddenly the sentence changes. There is no government spending, it's taxpayer spending. So the idea that we know taxpayer spending is inefficient, and we know we elect morons to get it done, that there isn't some efficiency you can get out of that? I seem to think there is. And Here's something interesting to think about. I want you to, if you go back and listen to Joe Rogan's interview with him, at one point near the end, he says, "This is my last election." That made my ears perk up because I thought, well, what do you mean your last election? What does that mean? And I follow out both ways. Well, he could mean this or he could mean this. No matter which way he means it, it allows him to do the things that are not popular. He can't say what he wants to do, even if he wanted to do it, because he has to get elected. So you can't threaten to tear down the system if you want to get elected. Again, as I said in the outlook, my expense is your revenue. If I spend money having my lawn done, somebody somewhere makes money doing my lawn. So if I cut expenses, I cut somebody's revenue. I get to keep the money, but they don't. If the government cuts expenses, it's somebody's revenue. So it's unpopular to say that. But let's just think about it's my last election. If he doesn't need to be reelected, he can cut and slash. He can send Elon Musk in there and say, okay, cut out 75% of the cost. Let's get it done. Let's just rip this down, because he doesn't have to worry about getting elected again. If he means it's his last election because there'll be no more elections, democracy is over, this is the end. This is the last election, not his last election. It's the last election, because there'll never be another election. He will turn into a fascist dictator. And if that's the case, then he can get the tough stuff done, because he doesn't have to worry about elections. In both scenarios, TLT wins. See where I'm going with that? Do both. He'll never run again. He can make the tough decisions. There'll never be any elections. There'll be no need for him to run again, because he'll be a dictator. He can make the tough decisions. He can cut spending for immigrants, and he'll do that in half a second, right? He can cut a whole bunch of spending for programs he doesn't agree with. He'll do that in half a second. Sends his lieutenant in to clear out all the regulation, and Elon Musk would love to clear out a whole bunch of regulation where it concerns him the most. He'll do it, right? So fiscal restraint, I would seem to think, would be better under Trump than under Harris. Harris, I don't think, would change. Harris would want to spend a lot. You get money, and you get money, and you get money. Forgivable loans, she mentioned forgivable loans for small business, but only if you're a certain skin pigmentation. See the woke coming back in there? First-time home buyers, here the taxpayer will step up and finance $25,000 of your purchase. If you're, again, of a certain skin pigmentation, the taxpayer will step up and offer you a loan that, if you can't pay it back, it's fully forgivable. Taxpayer will not care if you pay your tax on income you earn. If you earn tax on tips, and it's an income, but the taxpayer won't care. The taxpayer is perfectly fine picking up the tab. The taxpayer is perfectly fine paying for more immigrants to come into the country and giving them stuff that, by the way, even here in Canada, immigrants end up getting more from our government, from the taxpayer, than people who were born and raised in this country that need help. It's better for them to leave the country and come back in as an immigrant. They would get more than our own people. When we say our own citizens who are already here would get. So there'd be spending, and then of course there'd be taxes, and Harris would have taxes on the same group of people that they go back to all the time. How much capital do you chase away? And capital does leave. It does leave. If you want to see how much capital leaves, go to Dubai, go to Costa Rica, come to my neighborhood. I'll walk you around. Canadian, American, American, Canadian, Canadian. I'll walk you around the neighborhood. All of them have the same story. All of them have the same story. Okay, so I know they do it. I see them all the time. I know they do it. Go to Dubai. It's nothing but capital that has run away. Nothing but that. How many, as I said in the market outlook, how many Bill Gates and Steve Jobs do you want to lose? How many are you comfortable losing? How many more people is California comfortable losing? Right? We are with the T. Do you think we have topped out? I don't know what that means. Oh, where are we with T? AT&T. Do you think we've topped out? Not really. It's a network. And I think of all the networks, it's making some of the best decisions. And it has a fairly decent yield. I think you might have topped out near term, but what a great run it's had, 16 to 22 in what 6-month period of time. It's done fairly well. Maybe wait for 21 or 20 and see if you can't get back in then. But I'd be looking to buy AT&T again. What was the first sector you specialized in to try and generate alpha? That I specialized in, that would be real estate. That would be REITs. I discovered your channel last week and I'm loving your content. Finance, maths, MSc student, UK. So more into hedge funds, quant research, but your views of the market and life are incredible. Oh, thank you. Sad thing is it hurts those who delay consumption and actually live within their means. Any plans on doing a series in the options section about swaptions? Oh, why? A swap is OTC. You need to be a counterparty. As an individual, you are not a counterparty ever. You are not significant enough to be on the other side of a swap. You can never, ever enter a swap. It would be rare unless you were a really significant name. Retail investors, you're not getting into a swap. So what would be the point of a swaption? They're all OTC. They're not publicly traded. They're all OTC. You need to be a counterparty. There'd be no point because you can't use them. There'd be no point. Notice you added 2 new videos to the applied options section. Will we see more in the future? Yeah. The 2 that I added just give you a deeper theoretical understanding of what's going on with Black-Scholes-Merton. So you can sort of just get a little bit of insight into maybe some of the math behind it. Once we have a sell-off, like once we start getting into a bear market, yeah, there's more that I can add to the portfolio management section and the options section. But other than just describing something theoretically to say, well, let's say we did have this is what you would do. You kind of need the market to do something for you so that you can then do it. You kind of want a real world example of something happening. Otherwise, all you've got is a textbook example. So I'm kind of waiting for that to happen to finish a few other things, but we're not getting that. Any plans on doing a series? Oh, I already did that. How to be a high performer. That's a seminar. How people have so many achievements that the resume is stacked and I'm not able to do one thing. That's a one-on-one conversation. That's a mentor you're looking for, not a chat answer. When you invest your own money in a stock, do you focus immediately on financial statements or fully understand the value of the company from a business and marketing perspective? I look for a story. What's the story that this business has, right? Sometimes it's a financial story. Usually when it's a financial story, if you're talking about a large company, value-based company, the story will be a financial statement story. Which means efficiency is critical, absolutely critical. So a value company missing earnings by 2 cents can be a big deal. A growth company missing by 2 cents, they can miss by sometimes 50 cents and it might not be a big deal. Because growth is not worried about efficiency, it's worried about effectiveness. But for value companies, you're laser focused on efficiency. So missing by a little bit's a big deal, because there shouldn't be that much volatility in earnings to begin with. So it's kind of a big deal because you're not a high growth business, so you should be a fairly efficient business. So you're more interested in the financials. For growth companies, the financials are not as important. They're less important. Cash flows probably more important. Earnings per share are almost meaningless for growth companies. What is critical is growth. Is two big things: is growth. What growth are we getting in our revenues? That's the big number. Number two, at what margin? Right, especially gross margins. Operating margins, you can sort of look beyond, especially if they're in a high growth phase. But for growth, it's what is the top line revenue growth? What are the gross margins? You want to see that top line revenue is increasing and growth margins are increasing, or at least not decreasing, but maintaining or increasing, and you want big gross margins. There's plenty of time to get effective later on. Right now, let's get big. Let's make sure that we're the biggest player in the space. So it's when you're looking at them, you're looking at two different things, right? The more value oriented it is, the more the financials are going to matter for you. And the more the relationships among the accounts, you want to see stability. For growth, you probably are investing a hell of a lot more in the story than you are on the financials. Loss aversion affects me a lot. Affects me too. Past level 2 of the CFA, but I'm honestly scared to get into the markets. Have you ever experienced this? Loss aversion doesn't affect me there. It affects me in other ways. I'm more loss averse emotionally than I am financially. No, I will. Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. I mean, once bitten, twice shy, right? Sometimes you see an opportunity. You think, yeah, last time though didn't work out when I went into a situation like this. Let me get a small position, and then it just runs on you. It's like, I knew better. I should have gone in heavier. That's usually where it affects me. If it affects me in the markets, is that I just don't want it. I don't want that heavy feeling on me every day of, oh God, why'd I do this? And then I know the position's going to be with me for 6 months while I work my way out of a problem, and I'm going to see it every day. And so I go in small, thing, well, if it's small, it's no big deal. And yeah, that's where I should have went in a little bit heavier. Do you think long-term bonds are factoring in Trump's tariffs? Do you consider those factors in your duration strategy? A tariff is like a sales tax, as I explained earlier. If you have a consumption tax, one consumption tax, and you raise a tax, it's once. It's inflationary once. It's an event, not a trend, and the market will look past it. The tariffs are an event. The market will look past it. You may say, no, it's the beginning of a trend because your tariff on me will be my tariff on you, which will be an increased tariff on me, which will be an increased tariff on you, and you'll have this trade war going on. I don't think so. I don't think anybody wants to see, any other country wants to see tariffs. The U.S. is still the largest market on the planet, the richest market on the planet. China is got troubles of its own. Europe has got troubles of its own. Where else are you going to go? If you have access to the U.S. market, you want to continue to have access to the U.S. market. Some countries will have tariffs. Some products will have tariffs. I don't think you're going to get away without it. But this idea of let's replace income tax with 100% tariff, that only works when you have no local productive capacity and you have to import everything you make. That only works under a situation like that. And you can get rid of an income tax and say, look, we're just going to have a tariff on everything, but everything comes in the country. Then everyone still pays tax. They just pay tax in a different place. Sure. That's not going to work in the U.S. So I get what Trump says as part of his strategy is, I don't want you knowing whether I'm going to do it or not. I want to be unpredictable. I don't want you to know if I'm doing it or not. Why would I tell you that? Thing about walking into a room with a baseball bat and threatening someone is it only works if you're going to use that baseball bat, right? Now, if everyone in that room doesn't think you're going to use that baseball bat has no power. So if you've already said, look, I use the baseball bat as a negotiating tactic, I'd never use it. Don't worry, I'd never use it. It's in the goat. Well, then walk into the room with a baseball bat all you want. It's not going to change. Not going to change anything in that room. People in that room have to truly believe you're going to use that baseball bat, and for credibility, you're probably going to have to use that baseball bat on someone. That's the problem with a threat. Because if you don't follow through with your threat at least once, that threat will never, ever work again. So there's going to be tariffs. There are going to be tariffs. Probably right away, right out of the gate, and probably on China. Right away. 100% on the EVs. 100% tariff on the EVs. I don't know if he'll give a carve out for Tesla. If Tesla exports from China to the US, I don't know if he'll do that. But 100% for EVs, that'll be done. Because you got to use that baseball bat on someone. Otherwise, the baseball bat has no power. So that'll happen right out of the gate, and the narrative will run from there. Oh my God, there he goes, there he goes. And he'll really just be using it at that point as a negotiating tactic, because now it is. He has used the baseball bat. He'll use it again. You just don't know if he'll use it. Maybe companies will start to do as much production in America as they possibly can. Who knows? Where did we leave off? Applied level portfolio construction. Will you still be providing PDFs for the remaining videos, such as commodity futures short selling? The last PDF update was on October 23. Oh, that's not there? I didn't know it wasn't there. So unless somebody tells me, I would never know. Okay. Oh, I can just write it down on here. I got my Syntec in front of me. I'll just write it on the screen. What was it? It was commodity futures. And the other one was short selling. Okay, made a note of that. If I buy the applied level first and then I go by CFA, will the price be adjusted in CFA? If you have the applied level and you try to buy CFA plus, it won't allow you. You can't buy the same thing twice on our site. It won't allow you to buy the same thing twice. Can you tell me what the right path in valuing a business is? You tell me what business, and I'll tell you the multiple ways in which you can get it done. There is no right path. One size fits all. I found it's just based on our own subjective assumptions. There you go. A lot of it is based on your own subjective assumptions about growth, about what costs you think you can control, about the value of assets that are not listed at fair value, about the value of intangible assets the company built itself, about the amount of goodwill that you're willing to pay above the fair value of the net assets. There you go. Your valuation isn't like you can go to Walmart and say, hey, goodwill is only $79 here, right? There's nothing like that. It is subjective based on what it is that you can defend, right? What are your thoughts on Tesla at 270? Overvalued. I think it's overvalued. Tesla is very good at making you look to the future. Always look to the future. Full self-driving, just around the corner. Just around the corner. It's just around the corner. It's just around the corner, right? And not so much on today. We know that some of the videos he's put out in the past about this car is driving itself, we know that was a lie. This robot is working on its own, we know that was a lie. I'm not going to go as far as to say his financial statements are a lie, but I'm suspicious. I know that his free cash flow was highly engineered. Tesla's free cash flow was highly engineered for this quarter. Satisfy yourself. Go look at cash flow from operations. What was the big one? Operating assets, right? Go to the balance sheet and have a look. Accounts payable increased. Other operating liabilities increased. And you could look at days payable increased. I mean, they're telling you right there, but we overlook it. So if you look at free cash flow, it's only $100 million. The buildup in cash was because you didn't pay the liabilities at the end of the quarter. Well, a couple of days later, you got to pay them. That cash is gone, right? How do you have no growth, spend a big amount on CapEx, and end up with more free cash flow than than the year before? You have to engineer that, and you do that with operating assets, right? You engineer it. So if you're not having any growth in revenues, there should be no reason why you have growth in your operating assets. That's usually tied to revenue, unless you're trying to engineer it. It's engineered. So they lie to you about their marketing. They've lied to you about the robots. They're lying to you about full self-driving. They're lying to you. I don't know how many other things they're lying to you on. Fake it till you make it. I believe they truly are working towards this future that they say they're working towards. But along the way, they're lying to you. I believe that somewhere in their statements, something is not quite right. I don't know what, but something's not quite right. Anyways, ever consider working for corporate? Not really. What motivated you to pursue an entrepreneurial path? Lack of ability to work for a corporation. I never got hired. Sent out resumes. I never got hired. So I kind of had to do this. It was entrepreneurship by necessity. Having been down this road, I would never work for a company now. I took the path less traveled, and it has made all the difference. Can you please LMK where to find a copy Excel for financial modeling of Costco? Oh, let me know, you crazy kids and your shortcuts. They're very ODD. Where to find a copy Excel for financial modeling of Costco? You don't. The very first video says, I am not giving you a spreadsheet. We're going to start from a blank workbook. And I'm going to show you line by line how to build it. You build it yourself. And after it's all over, you send me your complete Costco spreadsheet so I know you've done it, and I can give you a certificate of completion. So I don't have to worry about coming up with an exam or anything. If I don't give it to you and you've got it, you must have done it yourself, right? So I'm not giving it to you. I'm not giving it to you. Difference between fair price and correct price. I'd have to see what context you saw those things in. It seems to me a fair price is a correct price. Fair price could be environmentally, well, when I say the environment, I mean the not the green environment, the social environment or the economic environment we find ourselves in. A fair price could reflect the environment that we're in. I don't know. Unless I saw the context in which you were referring, where there was the difference between fair and correct. I don't know. I'd need some context for that. What do you mean when you use the term priced in? How do you know 5 years market prices are priced in? You cannot know the future. No, you can't. When we say that information is priced in, it means, do you know this information? Where'd you get it from? Can other people find this information, or did the CEO tell you in your ear in private? If it's publicly available information, everyone knows it. Whatever price you see in the market, it's priced in. It's priced in. Now, you may disagree with the price. You may say, but the price should be much higher given this information. Well, then you go ahead and buy it. But to say, oh, the market hasn't priced it in yet. If you found it, if it's out there, if you read it in a 10K, if it was on the conference call, if it's a news story in Barron's or Wall Street Journals, it's out there. If the price is not moving because of it, it's because everyone else in the market has decided, who cares? This is not relevant or not important. So you can say two things. You can say, if it's known, it's priced in. Is it correctly priced in? Then you can disagree with it being correctly priced in, but it's priced in. The consensus has priced it in because whatever the price is the consensus value of the information you have. But the market is wrong quite often. What's your opinion on BCE being cuts and still falling down? Yeah. I cover that in the positions video. So I really want to try to separate what I do here versus what's behind a paywall. Thoughts on BCE's price trajectory? Thinking about all you've achieved, would you say you've made yourself 8-year-old and 80-year-old self proud? Or do you still have a few more big goals you'd like to achieve? My 8-year-old self would be extremely happy with me. I don't know if my 80-year-old self would be happy with me, because that's way in the future, and my 80-year-old self may be looking back at me saying, you could have done more, or you've sacrificed way too much. I won't know till I get there. But I do know every day I am careful on this. I ask myself from time to time, am I sacrificing too much? And no, I'm not. At least when it comes to my own conclusion, I'm not. Because at every point in time, I think, am I going to regret these decisions later on? And I remind myself that where I am now, these are the right decisions for me right now. I don't want to fall into the trap of revisionist thinking where 10 years down the line, I think, what was I thinking? I want to be very clear along the way exactly what I was thinking. Are there bigger things in front of me? Yeah, there is one really big thing. So we'll see how that works out. But over the next couple of years, you'll see some significant I wouldn't call them significant changes, some significant upgrades to what I'm doing, significant upgrades. But you got to find the right people. You got to find the right team. You don't just start down a pathway if you can't find the right group of people. And it is not easy finding the right group of people. So, but yeah, I will say that it will be interesting. Thoughts on the practical skills module of CFA level 3? I haven't seen them at level 3. I've seen them at level 1. The feedback on the Python one, because I didn't bother going through it, but somebody else did, is that YouTube, you can get the same thing on YouTube better, like much better. The feedback on the financial modeling one is he already has it. He already has all of that on YouTube. He's been doing the same thing. The guy that's doing it at level 1 has been doing the same thing on YouTube for 10 years with the same data, the same manufactured data, doing the same thing, the same presentation. I hope CFA didn't pay a lot for that. I don't know what they paid for that, but it's mostly manufactured data, and it's mostly just the Excel part, just the modeling part, and it's light. But it's meant to introduce you to it. It's not meant to make you an expert. It's meant to introduce you to it. I think it would have been better at level 2, and better at level 2 of saying, okay, let's combine the stuff we did at level 1 FSA, level 2 FSA, and level 2 equity into one practical skills module for financial modeling. And if you did that, you would have my Costco financial model, because that's exactly what it does. And I think you'd get a lot more out of seeing it from the analyst to the modeler, as opposed to manufactured data that just works out nicely in a model. World is not that neat and tidy. And it's the world you got to work in. As Aristotle says, you have to describe the world as it is, not the world as it should be. Perfect forms don't exist. Analysis for Tesla beating gross margins. Well, they cut costs 10%. Remember, they cut headcount 10%. Well, duh. I mean, of course you're gonna beat gross margins. That's not sustainable, because to do it again, you got to cut another 10%, then another 10%, then another 10%. It's not procurement. Okay. If it were procurement, everyone would benefit. It's not procurement. There are other companies with just as big as a procurement budget, and maybe even bigger. So it's not procurement. It's not that they are getting a lower cost than anybody else. Everyone's in around the same area. You recall earlier in the year, they cut their workforce by 10%. Well, after you get past, you don't just cut your workforce 10%. That's a mass layoff. So you got to give a certain amount of notice. So you give the notice, you pay the severance. It's going to be a couple of quarters before it finally shows up. It showed up. That's what it was. I mean, yeah, you're going to have a bump in gross margins, but the drift downwards will still continue unless you can cut another 10%, and then another 10%, and then another. You got to keep cutting. That's not sustainable. The increase in the gross margin is not sustainable. The increase in work in free cash flow is not sustainable because you did it from operating assets. So next year, what you have to do is you have to stretch your payables even more, because if you don't stretch them even more, then it gives you no boost. That is unsustainable. But that just might be enough to keep you looking to the future. Just don't look too hard at today. Look at the future. Just keep looking at the future. I'm a growth company. I'm not a car company. My financials shouldn't matter. My growth should. And I'm telling you 20, 30%. On what? You've got to introduce new models if you're going to get there. And that's not as impressive as 20% of your existing products. That's growth in your existing. That's way better than growth from new products. Way better. Because that would imply higher gross margins. It's I guess I'd call it just all a lie. But it's a company that is known for that. It has in the past stretched the truth. Or, that's a liberal way of saying it. That's a conservative way of saying it. A liberal way of saying it is they lied. Mischaracterized. They mischaracterized. They misspoke. That's it. They just basically lied. Their commercials about the car driving itself were a lie. The commercial they had where the Cybertruck was racing a Porsche, and at the very end they zoom out and the Cybertruck was pulling a trailer with the very Porsche on it and still beat the Porsche, was a lie. That was proven to be a lie after. It couldn't be replicated. That was a lie. The robots doing their own thing, not being controlled, that was a lie. And so was this. But the shareholder has shown themselves absolutely willing to believe it. It's a cult. How do you play a cult? You just stay away from it, right? I've been following your account for 4 years. Don't recall any response on whether we should use an extra money into mortgage prepayment or into RSP. If you have a mortgage rate of 6-7%, pay off your mortgage. If your mortgage rate is really low, 3-4%, put it in your RSP. My forward earnings are important because we buy the future. In any company you buy the future, not the past. Always the future. Always the future. Masters in physics. Oof, nice. But I want to get into finance. There's a possible, or I have to some finance degree. No, you can go right into CFA. EM equities regain their outperformance potential after the lost decade. Oh, I'm not going to say no. No, they can't. I'm sure they can. I don't know much about any of the emerging markets. I haven't thought deeply about emerging markets, so I wouldn't have an answer on that one. If someone started investing in stocks at 47, time is not in her favor. Is it too late? No. I'm a member of Applied Series. Never too late. No. Retail investor, what do you think is the best way to learn as much as possible about a sector to specialize in? You just got to jump in. Your best friends are going to be a company's 10K and Google. Start reading, and when you don't understand something, Google it. Then go back and start reading. You don't understand something, Google it, and it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Find out if there's an industry association. Go to the industry association. They usually have a whole bunch of stuff on education. They might have some good articles, some good news feeds, and it's just, you just throw yourself in there and you'll get overwhelmed. After a couple of days, you'll say there's so much to know. After a week, you'll go, okay, I'm starting to come together. After a couple of weeks, you go, okay, I get it now. It's not that bad. That's how long it takes. Can take up to a month sometimes to get something done. I've been with cybersecurity now almost a month, and there's rabbit holes all over the place. But I was going to do a lot on SD-WAN and exactly what it means. I thought it's enough just to say it's something. I don't really need to get into the whole architecture of it, and talk about how the data plane and the control plane are separate, because that's just can be confusing. You don't need to know it, but you end up, I've been a month on that. That's how long it takes to do it well. To really get to know something, it takes about a month, 3 weeks to a month. Sunday live session time has changed. It's noon. I did say last week I would try it at noon to see how it goes. If it doesn't go well, I'll switch back to 7:15. Next week I might do noon and 7:15 just to figure out which one has the more viewers. How do you handle burnout? Pop a bag of popcorn and watch some mindless TV for a while. I do get burnt out. Sometimes I think about, I should do something, and that feeling in your mind you get that you're just sick of it. It's like, oh, I don't want to do it. I get that. And then you just head to Apple TV. What's new? Head to Crave. Any good movies? What's new? Let's see. Throw a bag of popcorn in the microwave and just drift away for a while. Get a good night's sleep. You wake up the next day and you're right back at it again. Right? Any view for this week's non-farm payrolls? No, it's just a guess. I don't know. Beats me. I would say this: no number would surprise me. 350 wouldn't surprise me. 200, okay, that's fine. 150, yeah. 90, none of it would surprise me. That it could, the range of outcomes that I would say, okay, that all makes sense, is quite large. Whenever you buy stock in IB, you always buy with leverage? No. Can you not buy 100% with own equity? I don't buy with leverage. I buy with my own equity. I don't always buy with leverage. Mentioned voting for Trump. Do you factor in the conspiring prior to and culminating in January 6th in your support? I think a healthy democratic system bolsters a functioning capitalist system. Thus, Donald Trump and his co-conspirator actions undermining the democratic system cannot be healthy for capitalism, in my view. I'd love to hear your opinion. So January 6th happened. Do you still have capitalism today? Yeah. It happened. You still have capitalism, right? Hang on a sec. Here's one thing I know. Whatever, if for the election, well, starting next week, Trump will say, I'm hearing things, I'm seeing things. It doesn't look good, folks. This thing looks like it's going to be rigged again. He's going to start priming the voter for a rigged election. You got to get out there and vote. You got to keep your eyes open. You got to get into these polling stations. You got to catch them. I'm hearing things. People are telling me things. That'll start next week. If he loses, the election was rigged. You got to get ready for that. Absolutely. Is that going to happen? Yeah, it's going to happen. Absolutely. It's going to happen. Absolutely. We know this. The American people know this, yet he's leading in the polls. The question comes down to this. It's a very simple question. Do you believe in democracy? Democracy is the majority rules. That's democracy. You put two candidates up, the one with the most votes is the winner. In this case, the votes are electoral college votes as opposed to the popular vote. But do you believe in democracy? One candidate says, this is what I'm going to do. Another candidate says, this is what I'm going to do. You vote for the candidate you want. The winner is the winner. If you say yes, and we know all this about Trump, and he's leading in the polls, is that not democracy? Is that not what the people want? You may not like it, but is that not what the people want? I don't like Trudeau, but he won. So you have to say, look, if this is what Canada wants, I'm out. I'll leave. I voted, didn't do anything. If your votes don't work, you leave. Right? You don't decide to hold a revolution and tear down the system because the majority took something, went one way and you wanted another way. If you believe in the majority rules, and Trump is leading in the polls right now, there's the majority speaking to you saying, we don't care. But he'll turn it into a dictatorship. We don't care. They don't care. They don't care. So are they wrong? Should they not be allowed to vote? Should we cancel elections because we run the risk of people voting for a dictator? And if you do cancel elections, are you not the dictator? No matter which way you go, there is no easy way out of this one. You either believe in democracy and they're voting for the dictator is leading, they want the dictator. Okay, well, then either you accept democracy or you say, oh no, we can't have the dictator, in which case you want to overthrow democracy, which does that not make you the dictator? That's a tough one, right? He's winning. And if he wins next week, it's what the American people want. That's democracy. And if they elect somebody who has a high probability, based on what we're hearing, based on the narrative out there, of destroying democracy, and he wins anyways, it's priced in. It's known information. It's priced in. That is what the American people want. The majority voted for it. The majority rules. That's how it works. So if this was such a bad thing, he would be so far out of the polls. He would be losing by so much. He'd be so far behind, but he's not. In spite of all this, he's not. Do you get that? So an analogy in the market is this. Bad news is coming out of, on a stock, and the stock's not going down. That means it's all in. It's all in. If bad news doesn't take the stock down even more, much like a market, if bad news is not taking down a market any more than it has in a contraction, it's over. That means it's over. The bad news is not going to take anything. If bad news is not taking them down, where would he be without the bad news, right? Where would he be without it? It's not me. It's not that person or that person. It's the majority. You can't, if you believe in democracy, you can't tell the majority they're wrong just because your side is not winning. Now, I know what you're going to say, but that's what he did. That's what he did. Yeah, that's what he did. And it didn't work. And it didn't work. Right? It didn't work. But he did. I agree. He did. He did. And here he is, back, leading. Can you explain mining in a couple of minutes? Most important aspect? Not really. In the applied series, in the sector studies, you'll find understanding mining, and then there's another one, understanding gold mining. Have you read the book 100 Baggers, Stocks that Return 100 to 1 and How to Find Them? No, I don't go for titles like that. Have you ever been in a profitable multi-bagger stock given your conservative risk management style? Sure. You mean a stock that I bought at one price and over the years it's doubled and tripled? Yeah. Can I remember them? ABR is a great example of one. Easy. Lifetime Fitness in the in the financial contraction. That thing went all the way into the 20s. Got taken out private equity for 71. Northview. It used to be, I forget the name of the company before it became Northview. It was True North Residential REIT. Got bought out. I didn't take the money. I took the stock, 16 and change, held it all the way to 36. And then the pandemic happened and the deal looked like it wasn't going to be made, started dropping, went right back in again. Oh, yeah, I have. I mentioned that on Florida you'd vote for DT. I mean, with respect, I know you're a contemplative person. You definitely thought your position through. If you listen to his Bloomberg interview and you listen to Joe Rogan, he is a different person when he's talking about what he knows. He's a different person. When you see him at these rallies talking crazy shit, that's because the audience feeds into that. That's because the audience wants that. So he's already figured out, give the audience what they want. You want their vote, give them what they want. Is he a flawed person? Yeah. Show me a politician who isn't. Show me a politician who's not flawed. Did he, mess around with a porn star? Yeah. Why doesn't he get a pass on that? Why can't you give him a pass on that? Bill Clinton. And Trump did this before he ever wanted to run for president. How many things have you done in your private life that you don't want the public to see? Bill Clinton did it in office multiple times. Once, while he was the governor, and then as the president with an intern in the Oval Office, and then denied it publicly, and then said, yeah, and he's still considered the elder statesman of the Democratic Party. They don't throw him out. They don't judge him. Nobody judges Bill Clinton for it. He did it while he was president. Trump never did it while he was president. He did it while he was a billionaire, living a life. Tell me you wouldn't have done the same thing. As far as cheating on your wife, so did Kamala Harris's husband. Oh, we're not throwing him out. We're not saying, oh, she should divorce him. She should get rid of him. What a terrible person. Find me somebody who is without sin. Find me somebody who hasn't had a complex life. Find me somebody who can pass the purity test. No one passes a purity test, even if and especially those who want to set the purity tests can't pass their own tests, right? You have Trudeau caught 3 times wearing blackface in his past. He gets a pass. But if you had a conservative once, even if they were 6 years old when they did it, racist, they have to go. Right? But they get a pass. Bill Clinton, he gets a pass. All these people get a pass. George Bush, as far as we know, never, ever, ever cheated on his wife, ever. Doesn't get praised for it. Right? There's a double standard here. That if you watch very carefully, there is a double standard. I've seen it in Canada. Liberals mischaracterize. Conservatives lie. But liberals mischaracterize or misspoke. I didn't lie. I mischaracterized. I misspoke. If you're a liberal, you get a pass. You wore blackface, you get a pass. Right? But, if you harassed a girl, at the time when harassing a girl was bad, if you were a liberal, you get a pass. But not as a conservative. You don't get a pass. You have to pay for all your sins. You don't get a pass. Trump, oh my God, he cheated on his wife. Bill Clinton, yay, big claps, all from the liberals every time he appears on stage. But shh, Bill Clinton speaking, shh, what's he going to say? Oh, Bill Clinton, yeah. Come on, man. Come on. He doesn't get a pass. Oh, sorry. He doesn't have to pay the price. He gets a pass. Come on, man. Open your eyes. I mean, being a conservative these days is brutally difficult because you pay a much higher price for the same shit that they do. One thing I can say about Trump, the one thing, and I have said this before, is it's out there. There's no secret about it. Oh, he may lie about it, but there's no secret about it. It's out there. You know exactly who he is. But these other politicians on the left, you don't know who they are. They're the worst ones. They're the ones where you know they're lying to you, but you just don't know what they're lying to you about. You know they're not nice people. You just don't know where they're not nice people. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger, what did he do? Banged his maid, got her pregnant. He's married to Kennedy, governor of California, making movies again. Making movies. I even got a signed poster of him downstairs. He borrowed one of my machines again, one of my weight machines. I don't know why he likes that particular machine, but I lent it to him. Well, I lent it to him through another broker, but I get a signed poster in return. If you give me 10 married couples in my house, I guarantee you 6 of them have infidelity in their marriage. It's everywhere. My God, it's the human condition. So what you're saying is there's this guy suffering from the human condition in public for everyone to see. Yeah. Yeah. If you were a billionaire and you had access to the women, guys, you'd rise above it. No, not me. I may run for president one day and I want to pass purity tests. Look, man, he's a complex individual. Everyone's a complex individual. You should have seen the mayor of Toronto we used to have, Rob Ford. If you want to see some good YouTube videos, Google that one. That's just incredible. But he won, and then his brother ran, and his brother won, Premier of Ontario, knowing everything we knew about him. People don't care. The only people who care are the ones who lose, saying, "Oh, but he's this and he's that and he's this." They all are. They all are. They're all disgusting human beings. We all are disgusting human beings if we ran for office, because the shit we did in kindergarten, in grade 1, is all going to come out. Why does it come out? Because you're running against disgusting human beings who will drag your family through the mud if it means putting you down and so that they can win. They're all Machiavellian. These are people you don't want in your lives at all. That's politics, right? Politics will turn you ugly. So, you know, it's a choice. You have undesirable choices on both sides. It's a complex system. It's just a series of trade-offs. I'm not a fan of Trump, but I'm not a never Trumper. I'm not looking at the guy saying, "Oh God, anybody but Trump." I'm not a fan of him. I seem to think, for the Republicans, can't you do better? I mean, there must be somebody better. You must have somebody better. You look at the Democrats, you think, you must have somebody a bit more charismatic. You must. This is the best you got. You know, Clinton, Biden, Harris. Can't you do better? Apparently not. Apparently, these are the choices you have, which is why I made that comparison earlier. You can have socialist dictatorship or fascist dictatorship. Neither one of those choices are good. Welcome to the US election. Neither one of these choices are good, but you got to pick one. You got to pick one. I picked the right. They're a little bit more honest about their immorality, is about all I can say. Pension positions usually less than 2% of the portfolio. Large cash pile at the moment. Yeah. Does your 20% performance cover the cash too? Yeah, it's the whole portfolio. If I just counted what I invested, it is I'm doing incredible this year. So it does count on the whole position, Yes. What's your thoughts on a combo Masters of Finance and CFA? Why? Starting my Masters in January, I find myself really drawn to CFA. It's redundant, I would say, one or the other, but doing both seems to be redundant. I would, if you want to do the CFA in complement with your Masters, there'll be a huge overlap, a big overlap. You might get value out of that, saying, why not do them both? But I think it might be redundant. How did you learn about finance in such detail? You just practice it every day, every day, every day, every day. I see you knowledge on L3 compared to other prep providers. You work with it. The difference between, if I went into a mid-level university, let's leave the top 10 out of it for now, because they do have some big names teaching finance that are from the real world. But you go into any mid-level university and go into the finance department, and take any of the asset class courses. I could teach it better than them. I know it better than them without even looking at the textbook, because I do it every day. Most finance professors, if you take them all from all the schools, fewer than 5%, I would say, actually do something in the real world, fewer than 5%. So when you practice it every single day, you will know it better than the academics will know it, because you know the real world, not the textbook world. And I've given this choice before. You have a valuation class going on. On this side of the hallway in this room is one of the best published academics on valuation. 4 textbooks behind his name. Her name. Their name. Let's be fair. The best published academic is in there. Over there, no PhD, no CFA. It's Warren Buffett. Class on valuation. Which one are you going in? Right? PhD, CFA, well published, 4 textbooks. None of that. You're going into Warren Buffett. No one's going to that room. You're going in to see Warren Buffett. That's the difference between a practitioner and somebody who just teaches off the pages. You in the prep industry, I see that you have the same thing you have in academics. Is you have a lot of prep providers from Kaplan, UWorld, all of these places. I'm not giving away anything by saying names of competitors you're already aware of. If you look at who's doing the teaching, they've done something 20 years ago on the resume for 2 or 3 years, probably didn't make it in finance, and said, well, okay, I'll do this instead. None of them are practitioners. None of them are practitioners. None are practitioners. That would be like learning dentistry from someone who's never actually worked on any real live teeth. That would be like learning law from somebody who is actually never been a lawyer, right? The finance, business, law, engineering, these are professional degrees, not academic degrees. Professional degrees. They should be taught by pracademics. Yes, have some academic understanding, because you do still have to teach. So you better understand pedagogy, epistemology, ontology, what's real, how do we get to know that? You better understand all of that, but my God, have a foot in the real world. That's all I'm asking. Have a foot in the real world. But that's not a requirement to be a prep provider in the CFA program. The CFA Institute does not ask nor care if you have any real world experience. You want to be listed on our website as a partner, as a prep providing partner, that's fine. As long as you've passed 3 tests or you have a PhD, that's fine. But if you've never, ever bought a single security in your life, that's okay. That's okay. We're only training people to do that. You don't. Do you see the problem with that? That's a huge issue. I don't know. I think if you were taking it, I think that is something that I would certainly ask is what have you done lately? Not what did you do 20 years ago? What have you done lately? And if all you've done is repeat stuff that's written in this book for the last 20 years, I don't know. I I can say that because I know I'm the only one. I look at them all. I've looked at all of them. You know, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? None of them. None of them. None of them. So it's sort of self-serving in a sense that I'm kind of just promoting myself, but why the hell not? Right? Thoughts on, okay, did that. Just that our professors aren't practitioners. Well, there we go. Next line. Sorry for asking so many questions. Just that our professors are not practitioners. They rarely are. Elaborate on why cutting rates could affect Canadian banks. So banks can set up their balance sheet to either be, and you have to look at it from the bank's perspective when they say that our balance sheet is asset sensitive or liability sensitive. When they say asset sensitive, it means that the assets outperform the liabilities for an increase in rates. So that as rates are going up, our assets will outperform our liabilities. You would, from the investor perspective, from the CFA perspective, say, well, hang on a second. If rates are going up, don't you want your balance sheet to be less asset sensitive? Because we want it to have lower duration. That's exactly what the banks mean when they say they're asset sensitive. They have lower duration, which means the income on their assets reprices quicker. It's sensitive to changes in rates. It reprices quicker. Canadian banks, I still think, are asset sensitive, not liability sensitive. It takes time to shift to be liability sensitive. Being liability sensitive means that the cost of your liabilities drops faster as the interest rate drops. So interest rate cuts in Canada right now may not necessarily help the banks. It may help them in increased loan demand, but the economy is soft. So we can't count on that. Generally, lower interest rates help banks because it raises loan demand. So even if you are asset sensitive, the increase in your assets more than outweighs your costs, and you could start working to becoming liability sensitive. We have a weak economy, so it's not helping out as much. Not from a finance background. What should I do to get the basics of finance? I bought the economics module of CFA from your site, but could not understand effectively. Had to rewatch. Economics is the science, the most sciencey of the CFA curriculum. And by that, I don't mean it's science. It's the most sciencey of it. So there's a language that it has unto itself. Maybe not the best place to start with economics. I would start probably not with any of the tools. I'd start with the asset classes. Have a look at equity and fixed income. Those are the two big asset classes, and do that. Economics helps you understand industries, especially the structure of industries and how profits are made within those structures. But it's got a language unto itself. Why would central banks have 40% reserve requirement? 40% is huge. Why would they? Do they? That's a big number, 40% reserve requirement. That's a big number. Certainly not in any Western country, I would seem to think. Not in any country where, well, okay. So why would I? Let's just think about if I were the US Federal Reserve, why would I do that? I don't want credit creation. In other words, I don't want banks making any loans, or I really want to cut down on how many loans they're making. So it's not enough to raise the interest rate and have consumers decide I'm not taking a loan. I don't want the banks to lend out what they got. So I'll raise the reserve requirement. That will significantly reduce the amount they have available to lend. That's one way of getting it done. But at 40%, I would really have to want to shut down that lending. Am I getting this right? That's 1 billion. That's huge for them. I think you mean on Tesla. 1 billion increase in payables, 1.6 billion increase in other operating liabilities, a $2.6 billion increase in their operating, not the long term, in their operating liabilities. That's how they get to their free cash flow. If you take that out, they had 100 million free cash flow, which is nothing. So it's engineered. What was your motivation to do a PhD? Two things, really. It was early 2000s, lack of opportunity. There just wasn't anything going on. You had the dot-com bust. I just couldn't find any real significant opportunity to do anything. I liked teaching, but you're not teaching in a university without a PhD. So I thought, well, you get paid to do a PhD. Let's go hide in a PhD program for a while till I figure out what I want to do. And I never intended to finish it. I just intended to hide out there for a while. But from year to year to year, you get 2 years behind you. It's time to write your qualifying exam. It's like, all right, but I didn't put anything into it. I didn't study one bit for the qualifying exam. It's a 1-week exam. You're given 3 big questions, and they're big, and you got to write, about a 10-page essay on each of them, and you got 1 week to do it. Most people spend 3 months getting ready for their qualifyings. I just thought, it's not going to bother. And I passed. I got 2 passes and a high pass. One question I got a high pass on, the other 2 I got a pass on. So it's pass fail. One was a high pass, which could have been a paper on its own, but I wasn't in that mindset. Then you have to do a dissertation proposal. So I didn't know what to do. And I found a data set. Everything flows from a data set. You need a data set. You can have all the crazy theories you want. Well, I'm going to do this, and here's my propositions, here are my hypotheses, here's what I'm going to. Great, where are you going to get your data from? Shit, I didn't think about that. If you don't have data, you have nothing. So you always start from data, and then, what interesting questions are there from the data? So I had data, and I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Hey, that's a good idea. All right, write it up. So I wrote it up, and then you have to submit it. Nothing in academics is good the first submission. Nothing. It's your committee's job to find a problem with it. They're going to find a problem with it. You don't just hand it in. They say, this is wonderful. It's ready to go. Come on, defend, and let's get this published. That never happens. So after I wrote it, I took a whole chapter out. I shouldn't say this. I took a whole chapter out because they have to find something wrong with it. So I thought, let them find this wrong with it. I will take out the very thing that they find wrong with it, and they did. Now, it makes a leap here. You go from here to here. Yeah, you're right. Maybe it's a chapter on this. Yes. So they found the very thing I wanted them to find because I didn't really want to do any more work. So I put the chapter back in. You wait a sufficient amount of time, 2 months, 3 months, and then you resubmit it, and then you have small corrections. Now you're ready. It was pretty easy. The whole process was pretty easy. I didn't find it challenging. Unfortunately, I didn't find it challenging. It was pretty easy. Once you know how to play the game, it was pretty easy. Where'd we go? Just past level 3. What now? Live, damn it, live. Recently got a new job as an investment officer. Thanks to hard work and some luck, I've done well. Now management wants me to take charge of a portfolio, and honestly, I'm terrified. Any advice? Let it go. Let the fear go. You're going to take a portfolio, so you have a benchmark. Your initial position is neutral against the benchmark, and you just go through the list. You say, well, Start with the sectors. What sectors will outperform? What sectors will underperform? Don't take wild, crazy bets. You're going to lean into the overperformance. You're going to lean out from the underperformance, and you're just going to be somewhat different from the benchmark and get a little bit of alpha, right? But your benchmark is your sort of running partner, right? And you're going to look to run just a little faster than your benchmark. That's all. Don't be a hero. Don't go with zero weightings on these stocks and double the weighting on those. That's hero business. Don't be a hero. Just be a little bit better. Because if you don't make it, you'll just be a little bit worse. There you go. There's your job. If you haven't talked about it, I'd love to hear your take on Tesla earnings. Already talked about that a little too much. What tech tools you use to do your videos? Share some details. I use ScreenFlow from Telestream for the screen capture. I use a Cintiq 13D, which is a tablet that you write on. Let's see if I can hold it up here without it turning off. Oh, it turns off. It's a Cintiq. I don't know if you can see that, but it has a screen on the other side. That's all it is. It's just a Cintiq. Just turned off again. It's back on. I use a microphone. This one here, I just use a blue snowball. And Sketchbook. I write on Sketchbook. And that's it. What are your thoughts on the price of graduate level education in the U.S.? You pay for it, right? Not seeing the value. I would agree. When alternatives such as CFA exist, I agree. I think the university business model is a broken model. 4 years for an undergrad? Come on. For what an undergrad learns, you could learn it in a series of 10 to 12 courses. Get rid of all the other stuff. You can bring a 4-year degree down to a 2-year degree very quickly. You could bring it down to a year and a half if you do it by semester, like no summers off. You just do it straight through. There is no need for a 4-year degree. You can do it faster. So yeah, the cost is ridiculous. You can also do it without all the administration that the university has. Huge amount of administration. If you look at where universities have been spending money, the administration has bloated while the faculty has basically stayed the same. So you got to pay for all of that administration. And a lot of that administration in the last 4 or 5 years has been equity officers, diversity officers, inclusion officers, all this woke shit that you get to pay for. Isn't that beautiful? Right? How do we pose questions? Doesn't seem like questions are from the YouTube chat as I read the very question that you're posting on the YouTube chat. I just go in order from the top to the bottom. So like you may have asked a question and 45 minutes later, I haven't gotten to it. It's because I scroll down and I read every question. What is your opinion on Canadian apartment REIT? I like it. I see Can.UN at 48. Nice. Yep. Canada's decreasing immigration rate. Do you think 42.50-ish is a good buy? I hope it gets there again. I really do. You have a couple of things going on. You have a court decision on Airbnbs that says if you are renting your place out as an Airbnb, when you sell it, you got to pay the 13% sales tax on it. That's brutal. You're never going to sell it with 13% sales tax on it. And if you don't charge the buyer the 13%, you got to pay it. So you get around that by taking your home off of Airbnb and renting it out long-term for a period of time to recondition it back to a residential, not a commercial suite. And then the lower amount of immigration coming in. But keep in mind, we already have a housing shortage. It's not as if immigration's going in reverse. It's just lowered. It's just more people are coming in, but just fewer people coming in. You're already running at very high levels of occupancy. So the market's got it wrong on this one. So please, let's go back to 42. I would love nothing more than to grab it again at 42. That would be beautiful. It ran up to 55, 56, fair value. I reduced my position. I still have a basic position, but I don't mind adding another I'll triple the position. I had 64,000 shares, got it down to under 25,000 shares. I'll go back to 64,000 shares. I got no problem with that. I see a drop and I'm like, yes, yes. I've ridden it twice from the low 40s to the 50s. Twice. I don't mind doing it again. Love this thing. Love this thing. I'll take it again. So yeah, I've been buying. What are the business opportunities after CFA? Anything you want them to be. It's not as if there is a pre-programmed list. It's, whatever you want. The most common route would be something in finance, which is usually financial advice, being a financial advisor or a private wealth manager. Best way to manage a short position that went against you if you don't want the stock to get put to you. Okay, so you sold a put, it went again. You don't want to roll it forward, or just close the position. When do you use options to execute your trade, and when do you just buy the underlying? I don't really have a rule for that. Sometimes I just buy the underlying. Other times I'll use options. I don't really have a rule. Let's say that something falls back and I'm selling a 47 put for 52 cents. 52 cents doesn't really impress me very much. Why not just buy the stock? Because if it goes up 52 cents, there's your premium. It's the same premium that you would make. So sometimes it's just not worth it. That if you think something is overdone, sometimes I just buy the stock. How does gold look for the coming months? Yellow. I don't think it's going to change color. No, it looks good. I think it does. Listening to the people like Chamath, Paul Tudor Jones, just providing the exit liquidity. They aren't telling you what they are doing before, but rather long. Yeah, well, I think you're right. Just came across your channel from ChatGPT. Really? Channel primarily focused on U.S. markets only? Primarily U.S. markets, yeah. Please make a sector studies video on the insurance sector. Yeah, I thought I would do something outside of what I normally do. Normally, I look for value sectors. I thought I would do a growth sector, and cloud security certainly, or cybersecurity certainly is. Insurance is boring, but sure. I see inflation having short-term benefit on the real level of debt that will be counterbalanced with having to raise rates higher to fight. Well, inflation is only good for debt if you actually use inflation to manage your debt levels. But if you lean into more debt with inflation, and that's what our governments do. Everyone's talking about my haircut. Looking your age, 35. Oh, well, I know I don't look 35 now. I look at least a year and a half, 2 years younger than my real age, I think. CFA going to be useful for working in the energy sector? As an engineer, no. As a analyst, perhaps. In the finance department of an energy company, perhaps, sure. I'd have to know more. Are you a combat sports fan? Not so much anymore. Like, I remember UFC in its early days. I was a fan of that. Boxing, I was always a fan of, but I can't tell you who anybody is anymore. You sacrifice so much when you build a business. You let so many things go. So I don't know that I would say today, based on the definition of a fan, that I'd be a fan of any sport. How do you view Newmont's rising production costs? Could good earnings yet increasing costs explain the recent decline as the company pursues expansion? Well, you have rising costs, but you have a rising price of what they're selling. Gold mining companies are going to have rising costs of production, which is why it's going to push gold prices up. The yield per ton is dropping. So year after year, it is going to be more expensive for each ounce of gold. That's a positive for the price of gold. Because if gold prices don't go up and costs go up, it gets to a point where I'll leave it in the ground. It's not worth getting out of the ground at these prices. Just leave it in the ground and you'll constrain supply. So rising prices are the best thing right now. Rising prices are logical. Been sitting on the sidelines buying our family's first home, hoping that the lower interest rates will allow supply sellers to, not so much in the last couple of weeks in the US. Mortgage rates have gone up. All right, where are we on time here? 2:49. Should I scroll to the bottom and read from the bottom up? Yeah, there aren't that many in front of me here. I'll read from the bottom up now. Tips can be a good tracker to track future inflation. Not really. Tips are a break even. It is based on the yield that a tips has versus the nominal yield. The difference is the it's called a break even rate. It's the rate at which, if inflation came in at that rate for that many years, you would be indifferent between either one of those two bonds. So it's not that it's a predictor of inflation. It is a consensus in a sense. And then you can say, oh, I think inflation will be higher, buy the tips. Oh, I think inflation will be lower, you buy the nominal bond. It's just a break even. Doing a model video on a manufacturing company. I was going to do GM. That's manufacturing. Will you ever create CAI course? No. No, not really. I don't know why I'd want to at this point. Speaking of universities, what do you think about massive endowments scooping up the best investments and paying no tax? What do I think of all the sum total of all the RRSPs, all the retirement savings plans that people have, scooping up investments and paying no tax, right? What about all the endowments scooping up investments and paying no tax? Universities are tax exempt. Churches are tax exempt. I don't know that I have an opinion on that. I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that I care too much about that. I see a whole bunch of questions from one person, but they seem disjointed. I can't quite figure out. They just seem to jump into something, so I'm going to pass on that. Let me go to the bottom here. Do you like Norm Macdonald? I did when he was with us. Yeah, he was good. He took a long time to set up a joke, right? And you wonder, well, where's this going? And then it's just one line at the end, but he just took a long time to set it up. But he was funny. He was great on Saturday Night Live when he was doing Weekend Update. I try to evaluate the CapEx plan for a company in oil. How could I predict the impact on free cash flow since drilling is a big cost? Usually the company will give you guidance as to what their CapEx is for the next year, which is what you would tend to model for the next year is that if they have, some companies will say we plan to do this much per year. Like Costco was fairly straightforward. We are going to open, upwards of 30 new locations per year. So we modeled as 25 to 30, base case being 27, good case being 30. What's the average CapEx per location multiplied by the number of locations? You do have visibility going out. Raise your cost by 2% inflation per year. So read the guidance for CapEx. It's such a big number. CapEx is paid attention to every analyst. If you don't say what your guidance is for CapEx, you'll get the question again and again and again and again and again. You'll have to answer it so many times. Most companies give guidance on their CapEx. So just look for company guidance. You might have it in the investor presentations. You might have it in the earnings deck. It might not be in the 10Q. You'll definitely have it in the 10K, but I would look for investor presentations for more information on that. When will the new position subscription be available? I don't know. I'm torn on that one. I don't really like putting a price on something unless it's got overwhelming value. And right now I see it as, it's interesting, but I don't know that it has overwhelming value. I don't know that it's worth $25 a month. I don't know. 25. Yeah, I'm unless I can add something to it, unless I can put something significant in it. I don't know what that looks like yet. I'm hesitant to do it. I know there are some places that, they package up small little things and they sell it to you. And the goal is to try to generate as much revenue as they can and provide the least, with the least amount of work. I don't have that in me. I'm not that person. I can't get that done. So I don't know. I really don't know at this point. I may not do anything with it, but unless I can add something significant to it, I don't know what it would be, but it would have to be something significant. I'll figure it out. Right now if I'm collecting $25, I know that when I sit down to do the video, it's got to be a lot more than what it really is. And I'm not sure what it looks like. I'll figure it out, but not yet. Have you considered a priority chat for the applied level for these streams where you answer the applied level commentators first, then YouTube commentators to fill in any extra time? But you can ask me on the site, on markmeldrum.com. Every video has a comment section below. You can ask, and I do answer them. I don't answer all of them. I want to be clear about that now. I did that for CFA. I answered questions, but then you had a few people who just buried you in questions, right after each other. Question. And if you answered them, you just got more. You never actually answered their question. They felt they were in a perpetual conversation with you and that you had nothing else to do but answer their questions. They killed me. The small group of people ended up asking 60% of all the questions. I won't let that happen again. And I do have one right now every day. Boom. Here's 5. Here's another 5. Here's another 5. Here's another 5. I've stopped answering because you pay one fee. I'm not going to answer 5 questions every single day for you for the next 10 years. That's not going to happen. So I will answer questions, but if you're going to just bury me in questions, I will stop answering questions. But I do answer questions. I don't know that I want to answer them out here. DXY up, gold up, 10-year yields went up. And since the beginning of October, was listening to the analyst on Yahoo Finance. He was calling it Trump hedge. Can you share your views? Gold up, sure. 10-year yield up, sure. Dollar down. I would seem to think it would be dollar down. I think it's an easy thing to say. This is a Trump hedge going on right now. I think it's an easy thing to say. We knew about the debt and deficit a year ago. Didn't seem to matter. You knew about it in the summer. It didn't seem to matter. Trump was beating Biden in the summer. Didn't seem to matter. Gold was going up. The 10-year yield was going down. When it was Biden, Trump looked like it was going to be a Trump victory, hands down. Didn't matter. How is it different now? Right? No, I think it's too easy to say that it's a Trump trade. I think it's too easy. And you can't just, I know the market loves this. Let's just trade what's right in front of our face. Let's not look past it. But I think you got to look past this if you're going to find opportunity. I don't think it's a Trump trade. I have to believe that the players in the market are a lot smarter than this, that it may look like this, but correlation is not causation here. Aren't comments limited on the site? Not for the applied level. Not for the applied level. Make it cheaper, include it in the applied level. That's the choice I have. If I can't find a way to add value to it, I don't want to make it cheaper. I just say, okay, well, it doesn't make sense to have it as a separate module. I probably just dump it back in, but I just need a little bit of time to figure it out. I'm done with CFA planning to do CAA next year. Does Serify yourself consider offering CAA? I don't know if Serify has any plans. I don't have any plans. I don't know if Serify has any plans. Are you talking about me? You talking to me? That I asked in Market Outlook questions of 5. Is that the name you're using? No, not talking about you. It's a different name, and it's not that one. Do you think Lockheed Martin is a good defense play? Yeah, I think so. I haven't heard anything against it, but I'm not familiar with their financials, so I couldn't tell you if it's all priced in or if it represents a good value. I couldn't tell you. Is the applied level going away? No, not at all. In fact, it's getting bigger. No, it's not going away at all. Okay, I think we're almost done here. Let me just fly up here and have a look at some of these. Message deleted. I'm an undergraduate economics student and I love your content. Okay. Tyranny of the majority. Despite winning a majority, checks and balances are required to stop the minority having rights removed. This was known as a weakness of democracy, hence provisions to the Constitution. Well, I'd rather the tyranny of the majority than the tyranny of the minority, right? That's the worst. Which is what wokeism was. It was a minority, a loud minority that was just brutal. Most people disagreed with it, but just nobody stood up because they didn't want to be singled out, right? So that was tyranny of the minority. If you agree with democracy, that is the tyranny of the majority. I had to live in Canada under a prime minister who called me racist every day because I had white skin pigmentation, right? And that's what he said. You know, if you're white, you're racist. So you got to live with that shit. Isn't that what democracy is all about? Isn't it? Isn't it always a tyranny to somebody somewhere? There is no policy a government can institute where everybody wins. No matter what policy a government institutes, some people will lose badly. There will be unacceptable outcomes for certain people, no matter what policy. So the goal is the greatest good for the greatest number. If the greatest number voted for something and that something happens, then that's what they wanted. Is that tyranny? It's only tyranny if you don't agree with it. Anything is tyranny if you don't agree with it. Checks and balances stop minority having rights removed. What rights would be removed from minorities? If you have, a Bill of Rights, what rights are being removed from minorities? I mean, if you had a law that said, oh, if you're of this skin pigmentation, you particularly can't do this while other people can. You don't have this right that other people have. I hear this all the time. You're removing rights for that policy would remove rights for minorities. How? The policy says nothing about these people. How is it removing rights? Are human rights not everybody's rights? Like, what must a group of people have a specific statement just for them? I don't get that. You know, and your rights are my obligations. You don't just get rights. For you to have a right, somebody else must have an obligation to observe those rights. So you could always argue that, you know, the institution of a right specifically for a minority creates an obligation for the majority. That's not democracy, right? The trans right to you know, live an authentic life, great, which means being able to compete in the sport they want to compete in against women. Yeah, but now that's the women's obligation to lose, you know, against a biological male. You know, so you can give that person the right to do that. I don't know that you'd call that a right. I think you'd call it a privilege. But let's call it a right. Well, then how many rights are you tramping on to get that done? You can't just hand somebody a right. Somebody else has to accept an obligation to observe that right. So if we think that, well, the minority are having rights removed, the other way of saying that is the majority is having obligations removed. But I still don't know what right a minority is losing, unless it's actually said, because you're this, you don't get that, but everyone else does. All right. Are there any entire industries you tend to avoid? Biotech. I tend to avoid stuff I don't understand, nor do I care to do the deep dive necessary. I don't want to learn all these things about biology. It's just not something that that's drawing me in. If I had to, I would, but I mean, I don't know anything about it, so I just avoid it. All the crypto shit, I avoid all that stuff. Maybe it goes up, maybe it goes sideways, maybe it's a con, maybe there's something there. I don't really care. There's lots of other ways to make money. I don't need to go into spaces like that, so I avoid that kind of stuff. But mostly what I avoid is stuff I don't understand, nor do I want to spend the time to get to know. And healthcare is the big one. Pharmaceuticals, biotech is, I don't have any background in biology or health or any training at all that could even remotely help me with that. So I'd rather just avoid the whole thing. All right. Do you still believe GM is undervalued? Massively undervalued. Yes, massively undervalued. I truly believe that. Yes, I see it pulling back now, 52. You know, why is it pulling back? But if it keeps pulling back, I will just keep buying and buying and buying. If it ends up being 100% of my portfolio, so be it. It's so massively undervalued. And that is it. 3:07. It is past my first meal time. I don't eat till 3. This got me to 3. It's 3 o'clock now. It's time to eat. Cucumbers, tomatoes, and cauliflower. That's that's my meal. All right. I'm done. Be careful this week. We got a lot of shit this week. 160 companies reporting earnings, GDPs from all over the world coming out, PCE from the US, jobs report from the US, and the final week of campaign rhetoric where the stories about everything are just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And of course, now is the time to start the I see the election is rigged conversation. Who wants to make a bet? That's at some point during the week, Trump will say, I'm hearing things. I'm seeing things. I don't know, folks. It looks like they've got this rigged again. I'll bet he's going to get ready for, you know, if they win, it's because all his people made sure it was a perfect election. If he loses, it was rigged to no end. And you know, it's going to be exciting. Anyways, the Trump people can't come after me for saying that because I've already said I'd vote for him anyways. All right. I will see you guys next Sunday. Next Sunday I'll do 2. I'll do at 12 and then I'll do it again at 7:15 and we'll see what the numbers look like on each one. Then I'll make a choice. In the meantime, ciao.